You all ready? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. We'd like to call the meeting to order. Wait. So I'd like to begin by establishing some ground rules. We like to give everyone an opportunity to speak during public comments. We'd ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes. There's a long list of people that intend to speak. Public comments are just that, public comments. They will not be responded to or addressed, but you're free to say whatever you like as long as you treat people with the same respect that you would expect. We'd ask that you not talk over other people, no shouting, no interrupting other people while they're speaking. And we just ask that everyone extend the same respect that they would expect in return. So with that being said, oh, and also, we're going to go out of order because a number of people have prior commitments, and so we're going to do the old business and new business prior to the public comments. So I apologize for any inconvenience that might cause anyone. So with that being said, let's call the meeting to order. Start with Gail Moss, Sheriff Kraus. Here. County Executive Rich Fitzgerald.
Steve Polarski.
President of County Council Pat Katina.
Bethany Hallam. Councilwoman Bethany Hallam.
Terry Klein.
Present.
Abbas Kamara.
Present.
Judge Lazara.
Present.
County Controller Corey O'Connor.
Ryan Herbinko for County Controller O'Connor.
All right, thank you. With that being said, we will begin with the community corrections.
Point of order, Judge Halsey, I want to object to illegal representatives from 2 of the different seats sitting on this board right now. County Executive does not get a designee as per the statute, neither does the County Controller.
Thank you. That being said, can we have the community corrections report, passages to recovery?
Hello, I'm Candace Crosgrove from Passages to Recovery. Our current census is 32 alternative housing residents. We have 10 female, 20 male, 2 transgender, 4 TLF, 2 are working. We currently have 32 employees in our residential treatment facility. We had no COVID reports from staff or clients. We are currently working with the jail and to do so to provide methadone to those clients who request medicated assisted therapies. We will begin working with Literacy Pittsburgh, and they will be offering digital skills courses to our residents. And after the completion of 12 sessions, they'll actually receive a North Star Digital Literacy Certificate in an effort to provide digital equity to underserved populations. We'll also be working with Goodwill, who is providing an employment boot camp for our residents who are ready to begin their job search. There has also been a start of a spirituality group, which is being offered by Pastor Rob Thornton at Cornerstone Baptist Church to work with individuals who incorporate spirituality into their recovery. 6 residents will potentially be attending the End-Date Convention with staff this weekend, and that's where I'm at.
Any questions? Ms. Allen?
Yeah, hi, thank you for being here. I just have one question. Have there been any deaths in your facility since the last Jail Oversight Board meeting?
No, there has not.
All right, thank you very much.
Any additional questions? Thank you very much, ma'am. Renewal Center?
Good afternoon, everybody. Our program census at Renewal is 87 in work release, 10 in inpatient, 97 altogether. Our employment percentage for the past month was 73%, average wage being $14.65 an hour. No COVID among staff or reentrants were reported. We had the Trade Institute of Pittsburgh come to Renewal's Reentry Center and give a presentation to our County Reentrance Life Skills Group. The employee who presented on the services and opportunities that TIP offers was a former county reentrant. He was hired full-time by Trade Institute of Pittsburgh as a job developer. He maxed out off of probation in 2018 and continues to succeed in his personal and professional life. Every year, Renewal holds the Betty Esper Scholarship for reentrants who are furthering their education in either academics or the trade industry. Interested reentrants have to write and submit a written essay which will be judged by Board of Directors. The winner of the essay will receive a $1,000 monetary gift to help cover the costs associated with attending college, university, or technical school. Currently, Renewal has 2 contestants entered in the contest, and the front runner being a county reentrant. The entry deadlines for the scholarship is June 10th. Over the weekend of May 6th, Pittsburgh hosted the Dick's Sporting Good Marathon Race. The event started on Saturday, May 6th, finishing on Sunday, May 7th. A total of 30 county reentrants participated in the 14 hours needed in community service, attributing to the event's overall success. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Ms. Hallam?
Yes. Yes, thank you for being here today. Have there been any deaths in your facility since the last Jail Oversight Board meeting?
Yes, we've had 2.
Okay, and have you been told the cause of death or manner of death for either of those 2?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and can you share that with us?
I cannot.
Okay, why can't you?
That information was passed on to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and I'd have to defer that to our CEO of Renewal, who's present right today.
If your CEO of Renewal wants to come up and talk, does anyone have any objections? I would love to ask them questions. Okay, you can bring them up.
You could please begin by stating your name and spelling your name for the record.
Yeah, my name is Doug Williams, D-O-U-G, Williams, W-I-L-L-I-A-M-S.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Before you begin, I do have a question. Why would you have passed that information on to the Federal Bureau of Prisons?
The 2 individuals that unfortunately lost their lives in our care were under the jurisdictions and referred to our organization through the Federal Bureau of Prisons for their care. So when a death happens like that, our immediate responsibility is to report that to the Bureau of Prisons, and then their communications department has under contract with us. We have to allow them to make any public comment when it comes to the circumstances of the death.
Thank you, Ms. Hallam.
Yes, thank you so much, Judge Halsey. So I do have a question. Do you agree that Renewal as an alternative detention facility is under the purview of the Jail Oversight Board?
Under the purview of the Jail Oversight Board, under the contract we have with Allegheny County and the Allegheny County Jail and the residents that are referred to us from the jail and the courts, yes.
Okay, and in the statute, can you show me where it says that it's only folks who are referred from the county to your facility under our oversight?
The statute that I believe that you're referring to is a state statute that refers to the responsibilities of counties, and if they have their jail population, then they fall under, they have a requirement to have some sort of a jail oversight, whether it's a board or whether it's a committee of some sort, depending upon the size of the county. But it's my understanding that it's by county only. We recognize and respect that going forward, and I think that we did do so with the first death that we had where the individual jumped from a window, which, I just want to point out has still have very traumatic effects on all of us that work there. And the U.S. probation officer that probably has not even returned to her job yet, so it's not something we take lightly. Fortunately, not a normal event. But again, we will report those kinds of incidents to all jurisdictions, including the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, Federal Bureau of Prisons, and Allegheny County. In the case of that gentleman, we did report immediately to Allegheny County. The second death of the federal resident, we failed to do so in the chaos, and about 3 or 4 days later, we did report back to the jail and to their inquiry and confirm that there was another federal resident that passed away.
And why did you report back to the jail instead of the Jail Oversight Board?
That's what our contract, that's what our policies with the jail requires us to do. We report, like if someone absconds or escapes from our places, we have certain written policies and procedures we need to follow, certain names, phone numbers, et cetera, that we have to respond to. It's pretty well detailed. We have contacts in the jail, we have contacts in our Department of Corrections and the Federal Bureau of Prisons that we're mandated to make those reports to them.
Okay, so it was the jail who failed to report to the Jail Oversight Board?
I can't answer that.
Okay. I have a question since you're talking a lot about county versus state versus federal. Is it under your understanding as well that state incarcerated individuals who are in Renewal Center are not to be reported to the Jail Oversight Board as well, or is it just specifically federal detainees?
No, I just said that regardless of what the jurisdiction is, if we have a similar type of incident, all jurisdictions under the care of renewal, whether it's federal, state, or county, will be reported to all three jurisdictions. But when it comes to the statute that you're referring to, my understanding of that is that authority is with the contract that you have with us for Allegheny County Jail for the oversight of Allegheny County residents.
Okay, I appreciate your viewpoint on that. I disagree that the statute says that anywhere in it. I've read it a million times. I know that language isn't in there, but I digress. So in regards to people who are detained from the various entities, federal, state, and county, are the conditions at renewal the same? Like, could you go in and look at someone? Are they housed in a different place? Do they receive different kinds of treatment depending on who is detaining them in renewal?
They each have guidelines and certain procedures that we follow as far as how they're signed out into the community, how we hold them accountable for where they're at within our resident tracking system. Each jurisdiction has certain things. Some are more liberal than the other in regards to the freedom. I mean, it's just recently everyone's allowed to have cell phones. It used to be that was restricted. So we follow the policies of each jurisdiction.
Okay, so do they get the same hygiene supplies, bedding, meals, all of those things? Are they the same?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Same access to medical care, mental health care, drug and alcohol treatment, et cetera.
Okay, and what are your policies for notification of next of kin when there's a death in Renewal Center?
We immediately notify next of kin. We personally do that, and we have done that. To my knowledge, I've never not done that.
Okay, and do you also fill out the Death in Custody Reporting Act that is required for deaths in custody?
I can't say that for sure.
There is everyone else, I didn't know you were going to be speaking here, but everyone else has a copy of the report, the Deaths in Custody Reporting Act requirements. This is required by federal law, that every death in custody, that this is reported and turned over to the proper authorities. Does Renewal fill these out for people who die in Renewal custody?
No, any death that we have is reported to that jurisdiction, reported to the city police. They respond. In both cases, the City Homicide Bureau did their investigations. The medical examiners called, and beyond that, we're not involved in any of the reporting. And many times we don't get a certificate of death or cause of death.
Okay, so are you saying that if someone dies in Renewal Center custody, that it is not Renewal Center who is reporting it as a death in custody? So there's no record keeping of deaths in custody at Renewal Center specifically?
I'd have to see your form and see whether we put that in our chart or not.
Here, I can give you
I
one
don't know.
if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is the document that is required by federal law to be filled out for every death in custody. That includes detention facilities, halfway houses, anywhere where someone is in custody. It also is determined upon federal funding that's received by various institutions. If you are not in compliance with the Federal Deaths in Custody Reporting Act, you can be ineligible for federal funding. And it also includes people who are not declared dead in the detention facility, but die as a result of an incident that happens in a detention facility, even if their death happens in the hospital later.
To be very honest with you, I'm not going to be able to answer specifically whether we do that. I would doubt that we do at this point in time.
But as the CEO of Renewal, you've never seen this form before?
I have not.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Ms. Klein?
Sorry. Can you talk about what changes have been done to your facility to prevent any further?
Yeah. With the individual that jumped out of the 7th floor, our windows, we've never had a chair thrown through a window. We've never had someone attempt to go out a window at that height. We've had people on the back of our Boulevard of the Allies program climb out on a fire escape and go down, jump on the roof of a neighboring building. Our windows are alarmed. Those particular windows in the front of the building don't open. They're 1/4 inch or a half-inch double pane, so there's a half-inch, then there's the inner part of it, and then another half-inch. That took some effort to go through. We don't understand the circumstances of it. It happened in a moment's notice. An individual went into an office where the probation officer was, created some sort of an incident that the probation officer ran from. And within seconds, the door was slammed shut, and next thing we know, the person was on the sidewalk downstairs. We've had a company come in that was referred to us by the Federal Bureau of Investigation that they use, and they come in and inspected all of our windows. And I'm not sure if it's completed yet, but last week they started on the 339 Boulevard, the Allies building, putting a film on the inside of the windows that we use at 704 on our ground floors, that it stops a low caliber bullet from going either way, and it will also prevent someone from being able to put a chair through or to lunge a body through. It will bounce them back. The window may break, but that film's not going to give away. Short of going out and, putting, bulletproof, non-breakable windows in our entire facility, that's the best we can do at this point in time. The other changes that we do when we have someone, that dies under other circumstances, we do a complete half a day long, if sometimes day long debriefing of all the staff. All the contracting agencies, have the opportunity to give us suggestions. We put in plan of corrections, plan of actions, and then we're monitored on that pretty tightly as to whether we've put into better practices. We do the best we can.
Ms. Hallam?
Yeah, I forgot two other things. Are there any other deaths that we are not aware of that have happened in Renewal Center?
Absolutely not, to my knowledge.
So how long have you been the CEO?
20 years.
And how many deaths have there been in 20 years?
I'd have to go back and check our record, but I don't know, but every one of them has been reported. It's not a common thing, and normally it's death through, normal causes and drugs.
And when you say every death has been reported, who have those deaths been reported to?
They get reported to the jurisdictions.
Okay.
Okay,
So not necessarily reported according to the Federal Death and Custody Reporting Act, because you don't do that.
that's correct.
Okay, and then,
I object.
this isn't a courtroom, I'm sorry, sir.
I'm sorry, I object. I'm counsel for renewal, and I object. Look,
I'm sorry, is he permitted to speak?
Keep stating what the law is and what the law is not. And whether that is a correct statement or not is totally inappropriate. You can't make assumptions of law that as if you somehow wrote the law or knew what the law was, and then expect my client and a not-for-profit community group like this to be held accountable for what your interpretation of the law is.
Excuse me.
Okay,
excuse me.
so, sorry, I have the
Excuse me,
floor right
excuse me,
now.
Excuse me. We cannot have other people speaking because you can't hear. He's involved with renewal. He's permitted to speak. You can speak when you have a public comment. Otherwise, we ask that you extend the same courtesy to people that you expect and don't talk over people.
So I want to first of all object to the fact that we discuss renewal as if it's some community organization when it is indeed a detention facility where people are detained by the various jurisdictions. Second of all, I have no idea what you were talking about in your legal argument, so I'm just going to ignore that. And third of all, I'm just trying to get like basic understandings of, is this something new that we should be concerned about? It is absolutely under our purview as the Jail Oversight Board. The statute, again, is very clear about that. But I just want to know, when is the last person that died in renewal custody? Was it 5 years ago? Was it last year? Can you give me a vague understanding of when the last death was?
No, not without going back and getting my facts correct, but if you would like to know that, I'll see if I can give you the information. I have to talk to the jurisdictions.
Yeah, if you could to the next meeting, which is actually in 2 weeks, so it's pretty soon. If you could.
The Allegheny County Jail certainly would be able to tell you over any given period of time the numbers of deaths that they've had in their alternative housing programs, not just ours, if there was in others, okay? The Department of Corrections has that responsibility to give that report, and the Bureau of Prisons. Beyond that, I'm not going to promise anything that I can't give you.
Okay, and also, are you aware that there's a video circulating of the most recent death of a person being revived by other incarcerated individuals at Renewal Center instead of renewal staff?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to ask because that is a video that I think the rest of the board should see as well. It was recently brought to my attention. It is a very graphic video, so I don't want to like show it in the middle of a meeting or anything, but I do think that everybody should see that because I just feel like you're painting a very different picture than the information I've received from both staff and incarcerated individuals in
I'm not
Renewal.
going to base my opinion on that or what you get off of social media, okay?
This wasn't from social media. This was from someone who is incarcerated in Renewal
And then
Center.
it was put out on social media.
It was not. It was given to me personally, not on social
Can
media.
you describe the circumstances to me, and I'll reply, because many times in the middle of the night or in the wee hours of the morning, if a person goes into distress of any way, the only way sometimes we find out is that some people that are in their rooms, they immediately alert staff through a phone that's right outside their doorway. They call down, and we immediately respond. There have been numerous times, far greater than the deaths that you're talking about, which I regret, where we have saved lives. Okay, saved many lives. Okay, so I don't appreciate that kind of tone coming from you, to tell you the truth. We take our job very seriously, and every life is important to us. If there's been many videos that have been put out on social media that, just like you guys tried to make a big deal of a pizza party after a federal death, the man that jumped. Do you know why that pizza party was put on social media? You know it. You answered it on one of your tweets on your Twitter account. You know why it was put there? Because when the man jumped, people didn't get their meals. The whole floor was locked down, okay, for hours until the investigation over, until I got out of the room where the man jumped. They came up to me and said, the cafeteria is closed. We're out of cold lunches, late plates. Do you mind if we purchase some pizza so that people on the 7th floor where this happened can have something to eat? Okay? Somebody then took a cell phone and filmed that and puts it out on social media that we were celebrating and having a party after this man died. I resent that, okay? You can make that what it is, but I had to make that statement. That's how false some of the stuff is. You better get your facts right. Don't sensationalize things that are not true. It's not fair to the people that live there, and 95% of the people do very well in these programs.
Is there something
Thank you.
specifically that I've said that you believe is not true or sensationalized?
Your story about a video on social media, I just gave you a circumstance where when someone is probably being revived, it may be somebody that wakes up in the middle of the night and realizes that a roommate's in distress. We train our residents to the use of Narcan. They're trained in that. They're trained in certain types of self-care. They will make attempts to help their bunkmates, their roommates, until we can get notified and we get up there. We take over. We have all the equipment that's possible to save lives until the EMS gets there. That's it.
All right, I appreciate that. I was merely just asking if you were aware that there was a video. I didn't know you were going to go into all that, but
you
thank you
took
for the
it there.
information.
I'll take it.
Thank you very much. That's all I have. Oh, wait, one more thing, actually. You mentioned about how staff and people at Renewal were dealing with the trauma of that first death in the jail.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you brought in any outside entities to assist with the trauma of the incarcerated individuals who witnessed it? Can you tell us a little bit about what additional treatment and services they're getting as a result of that?
Every one of our departments, the Department of Corrections offered their trauma unit to our entire organization on both of these deaths. We have a great relationship. The Federal Bureau of Prisons does the same thing. We also have trained EAP staff on our staff that we offer all the EAP and all the behavioral health support for any one of our residents that reaches out for it, and they have, and we've given it to them.
Okay, thank you very much for your help.
No additional questions? Thank you very much. We'll now hear from electronic monitoring.
Afternoon, Board. Steve S1 with the Probation Office. Nothing unusual to report, just some numbers. We had 656 individuals enrolled in the program during the month, 29 successfully completed, and we had 4 that were taken back for various violations.
Any questions? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move. Move down to old business. Judge Lazara.
All right, so I am reporting as the chair of the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund. As anyone who has been following these meetings knows, we have been trying to put in place a position of Jail Oversight Board Liaison. This is a position that will help us determine exactly what is going on in the jail. This is a fact-finding position. They will go down, and when people report things, they will go down and check those things out, come back, report to the board so that we have the absolute best facts that we can to make decisions on. It's been a multi-year task trying to get this going. We are very excited that we finally were able to collect resumes, and I think there were over 60 resumes, actually approaching 70 resumes, that the members of the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund Subcommittee reviewed. We then conducted interviews, and we then had discussions, and at this point we have a recommendation to pass to the board for the hiring of a jail liaison. And so I am making a motion at this point in time to have the board approve the recommendation of the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund Subcommittee's recommendation of Karen DeFolo, I always say her name wrong, I think, as our jail liaison.
Is anyone seconding the motion?
I'll second.
Point of order, Judge Halsey. This was not on the agenda, vote on this. This is in violation of the Sunshine Act. We can't vote on something without announcing that it's going to be voted on.
Okay, appreciate your objection.
And a second point of order, if that argument doesn't do it for you,
Doesn't.
I have the Sunshine Act right here if you want to read it. We also cannot vote on something without hearing public comments first. That's why public comments are before the voting items. You can't do that either. The vote's invalid.
All right, appreciate your objection. With that being said, is the second motion's been made and properly seconded? All in favor of voting for Karen DeFolo?
Before we vote, I have a statement from Controller O'Connor about this. First of all, Controller O'Connor is out on paternity leave right now with a newborn, but we've been heavily involved in this process since the very beginning, since a couple previous controller administrations, and we have serious concerns that the MOU that we proposed, the Memorandum of Understanding, is not going to be followed for this. And it's just going to be the same old stuff day in and day out. If we don't have a proper framework in place with this liaison, then nothing's going to be accomplished. So we would want an MOU in place with this liaison before we even vote on it, or else it's not going to be anything worthwhile.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Urbanko. But as you're aware, I'm sure, as is County Controller Corey O'Connor, the committee has met repeatedly, met with approximately 5 to 10 people, is my understanding, interviewed those people, conducted thorough interviews. They narrowed it down to a list of potential candidates. County Controller O'Connor was not present for that vote. A vote was made, and based on that vote, one person came out of the vote as the...
With respect,
if I
that
may
vote-
finish, the one person that was voted for the position would be presented to the board consistent with all prior interviews, discussions, and committee meetings. So if there's a concern about the MOU, you're more than welcome to discuss that with the sheriff at a later date. The question for us now and today is yes or no to the person that the committee has nominated for the position. So with all due respect, while I appreciate your concern, the question today and now is who votes in favor of Karen DeFolo or who votes against her being hired for the position? So with that being said, all in favor?
I would like to have a statement. We, one, did not have discussion at, and two, I just want to make clear that everyone on this board is okay with proceeding with a vote that, one, was not on the agenda and announced to the public in following the law of the Sunshine Act, and two, a vote that is being made ahead of public comment that may be about the vote.
Yes, we're okay with
Is
that.
everyone okay with that? I would
Everyone.
not like you to speak for the whole board. I want to get everyone on the record saying you're
Ms.
okay with
Klein?
breaking the law.
I have a question. Is personnel exempt from this?
They are exempt in the way that we are allowed to discuss and coordinate it in an executive session, but when it comes for a vote on here, you still need to have on the agenda that you're going to vote on something from executive session or from a personnel matter. The only thing that is exempt from it is the discussions of personnel matters, which were the meetings that we had in executive session.
Your objection is noted. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I guess I would like the opinion of the county solicitor.
I apologize, but I don't think we need the opinion of county solicitor because
Beth.
this is what we've agreed to. This was the process.
Beth.
Everyone on that committee was involved with the process of interviewing each candidate. And because certain people did not get the requisite number of votes, certain people are upset about that. But the process was fair. It was thorough. It was comprehensive. And today is the day to vote to approve or not. Karen DeFalo. Judge, obey the law. I am. So with that being said, all in favor?
No, we
of
cannot
voting-
proceed with this vote, Judge
We
Housing.
heard your objection.
But I would like everyone to acknowledge that they are violating the Sunshine Act in taking this vote. It was not put on the agenda for a vote, and even if you think that that doesn't matter, the public has every right to have their voices heard before a vote is taken. We cannot ignore something that we have spent so much time on, we have worked so hard on, and now you want to rush it through with a smile on your face. That's so disrespectful.
All in favor?
No,
All in favor?
no.
Judge Lazara?
Steve Pilarski, you do not get to vote.
Kerry Klein? Steve Pilarski? Sheriff Crowell?
So shady.
All opposed?
I am very opposed, and I would like to read my statement that you did not let me read so that I can tell you exactly why I'm opposed.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I wrote a statement because I'm very angry.
Okay, go ahead. Read
We
your
have
statement.
multiple law enforcement people sitting on this board, and you let the law be broken meeting after meeting after meeting.
Okay.
So, I cannot protest this process and this supposed final choice strenuously or aggressively enough. What is being proposed here is the candidacy of someone who is personally known and worked with the head of the subcommittee. There was another candidate that everyone agreed was the most qualified, but two of the voting members of the subcommittee insisted that due to their perception of the political leaning of the candidate, they should not be recommended, even though there were no allegations or information demonstrating or providing any weight at all to their concerns. Meanwhile, the candidate that you are now putting forward clearly did not have an understanding of the position, did not understand what the Jail Oversight Board meeting even was or did, and did not understand why there continues to be such a critical need for a competent, professional, and knowledgeable independent liaison to investigate allegations, assist in information production, and support this board to undertake its obligatory statutory duties. Almost as concerningly as the clear disinterest in and ignorance of the liaison position in the overall is this candidate's relationship with some of those involved in the vetting and interviewing process. I know nepotism and patronage is just kind of the way we do things here in Allegheny County. So I'm sure many do not recognize this as unseemly or unacceptable. However, I do not accept this sort of seemingly unethical motivations or behavior, especially by the people who sit on this board who are supposed to be upholding the law. One of the primary advocates for this candidate essentially refused to consider even any other candidate, even a compromise candidate, essentially hijacking the process in the discussion from the very beginning. Likewise, the inclusion of an illegal designee in attempting to count their vote in the resume is blatantly contrary to the controlling state statute, as was the exclusion of the vote of an individual who is a legal member of the body simply because they were unable to make the specific meeting, and those three specific individuals wanted to ram through their effort with this unethical and illegal so-called vote on the matter. Not only does this board with this vote open itself up to legal liability for passing over a candidate who is clearly, without doubt, the most qualified, but the manner by which this was all conducted carries at least the perception of possible unethical behavior, which will undoubtedly only serve to seriously undermine the credibility of not only this liaison, but this whole entire board. I am disgusted, I am disappointed in the way this entire process has gone, including the way that we are voting right now in clear violation of the law. The Sunshine Act is not a long document. If you want to read it to be sure that what you're doing is wrong, please do it. I offer that. But you should all be ashamed. You should all be ashamed.
I must say, I think what's disingenuous is that, Ms. Hallam, you participated in the process, And when your candidate did not receive the number of votes, you attempted to hijack the process by threatening people, telling them to vote, change their votes. At the end of the day, the committee interviewed every person that they deemed to be suitable and worthy of an opportunity to interview. They interviewed those people. At the end of that process, the committee discussed each applicant. They voted, and Ms. DeFala got the requisite number of votes. She is the person. The process was fair. It didn't become unfair because you don't like the candidate. So to that end, with the motion being made and properly second, the motion carries. Karen DeFala will be hired as the court liaison.
So just one second. You
Thank
made
you.
an allegation
No, I didn't make an
that I
allegation.
threatened. So there were 3 people who
That's not an
voted for this
allegation.
candidate, okay? So you're making an allegation that I threatened them to change their
No.
votes? These 3 people right here who I know you must be talking about.
Not
Did
these
I do that?
Not these 3 people. But the point is, the process was fair and it was consistent with the manner in which it was discussed. Your candidate did not get selected. End of discussion.
It is not my candidate. The best candidate did not get selected, but you just made an allegation on the record that I threatened people to change their votes. There are only 3 people who I could potentially want to change their vote. Which one of you 3 told Judge Halsey that I threatened you?
So with that
Because I
being
don't
said,
remember that.
the motion has been made, properly second, and it carries. Now, as far as any additional old business, Judge Lazare.
I just lost my numbers. I have the regular numbers. Here they are. So every month we provide the numbers on jail population. So the status of the jail population as of 4:30 p.m. on May 16th was as follows. There were 1,512 people in the Allegheny County Jail and 126 people in alternative housing facilities. That excludes people with holds by the federal government. 6%, that is 93%, discrete people were in the jail itself serving a county sentence as a result of a new conviction. 26%, that is 33 of 126 people, were in alternative housing serving a county sentence. 21% of people in the jail itself had a hold, that's 322 people, were in the jail with a hold from an external jurisdiction, including other counties of the state. 2 individuals in alternative housing also have a hold from another jurisdiction. 41% of the people in the jail were detained by Allegheny County Adult Probation. That is 624 individuals. These individuals were detained for violating probation on a crime for which they had previously been convicted. Of those, 86%, or 535, were of moderate or high risk to reoffend based on their probation proxy risk scores. 25% of people in alternative housing were detained by Allegheny County Probation. That's 32 of 126. 88%, or 28 of those 32, that were detained in alternative housing were of moderate or high risk based on their proxy score. 27% of the people in the jail itself, that is 413 people, were held pretrial only, meaning they had no other reason, such as external holds or detainers, keeping them in the jail. Of these people, under 3% screened as low risk for reoffense based on Allegheny County's locally validated pretrial risk instrument. 15% of people in alternative housing, that is 19 of 126, were held pretrial only, and only 2 of those screened as low for risk of reoffense. 100 individuals, that is approximately 7% of the jail population, were currently being held in the Allegheny County Jail pretrial only on monetary bonds. Of these individuals, only 8 screened as low risk for new criminal activity. Only 3 of 126 people in alternative housing are held on monetary bond. You should be aware that every pretrial monetary bond case is reviewed for possible bond modification. Comparing, we've always compared with prior to the pandemic. So as of March 16th of 2020, there were 2,075 people in the incarcerated, 1,859 in the jail itself, and 216 in alternative housing. As of May 16th, the jail itself was 1,512, which is a 19% decrease, and the alternative housing population was 126, a 42% decrease. The detainer population from the time right before COVID to now is a 30% decrease. So those are the stats for the month.
Thank you very much. Any questions? With that being said, there was nothing submitted for new business, so we will now move on to public comments. Again, I would remind you, public comments are to be limited to 3 minutes. If you sign this sheet, you will be permitted to speak. If you did not sign this sheet, unfortunately, you will not be permitted to speak. So with that being said, and also you'll hear a buzzer at the end of your 3 minutes, and at that time, we'd ask that you stop speaking. Please make sure that you state your full name, spell your last name for the record. First and foremost, we'll call up Andy Howard from the Public Defender's Office. Mr. Howard.
Good evening. Andy Howard, A-N-D-Y-H-O-W-A-R-D.
Thank you, sir.
I'm the Senior Deputy of Trial Advocacy at the Allegheny County Office of the Public Defender. Today I'm here to speak about an issue that should be of major concern to the board and various institutions that you represent. Out of respect for the 3-minute time limit, Art Ettinger, a veteran public defender in our major felony unit, will pick up this statement where I've left off at the end of my comment. For the past half-decade, with a notable and understandable exception of the height of the COVID crisis measures, attorneys in the Public Defender's Office have been able to visit clients at any time between 8:30 a.m. and 8 o'clock p.m. This calendar year, the warden changed that by disallowing our entry into the jail during 2 critical business hours, 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. and 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. to conduct count. The warden has stated to this board and to me in a meeting that we have never been allowed in during count. I've never felt so blatantly gaslit, whether it's a new policy change or a policy that was on the books that the warden previously failed to enforce or chose not to enforce by documented agreement with then Chief Public Defender Elliot Housey. It is really immaterial. I have personally visited many clients during count for years, and so have all of my colleagues, many of whom are here tonight. The jail certainly has visitor and level visit logs with our signatures proving it to be the case. Something changed this year and we need it to be changed back, or move count, or make some accommodation, because we know from experience that they can. Simultaneously, the warden decided to close level 1 video to encourage in-person visits, he said. But the real effect, well documented, and I can provide to the board, is to make remaining video pod overloaded and unable to accommodate the load, so attorney visits are being canceled. The warden also abruptly disabled screen sharing during video visits, which means that we can't play video discovery to our clients. Instead, we have to get special approval from a deputy warden to bring a laptop into the facility and sit in person during the ever-narrowing visiting hours. The Sixth Amendment is being squeezed to death. The attorneys in my office represent a very large proportion of the individuals incarcerated in the ACJ. Our attorneys carry a significant caseload, which require a lot of court appearances, which correspondingly requires a lot of need for communicating with clients. For us to meet our constitutionally mandated duty of providing zealous, competent representation, we have to meet with clients very frequently. I can't imagine anyone incarcerated there deserves anything less than communication with their attorneys. The result of the warden's weaponized policy making and enforcement is that our clients' cases suffer, their rights are weakened, court appearances need to be postponed, sheriffs have to do additional transports, judges aren't clearing cases, tax dollars are being wasted, and court fees are piling up, and it cannot continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Art Ettinger.
Art Ettinger, E-T-T-I-N-G-E-R.
Thank you.
My name is Art Ettinger. I'm an attorney in the Major Felony Unit at the Office of the Public Defender. I recently celebrated my 21-year anniversary at the office, and it's a daily honor representing the people that few members of our society care about. Attorneys can no longer give paperwork to our clients during visits. We have to mail all of our legal documents to our clients in envelopes marked with our advance requested barcode. The warden claims that they need to inspect these documents for contraband and that they aren't being read. We aren't even allowed to bring in, for our own critical use during visits, 3-ring notebook trial binders, something that we used to be able to do. Attorneys are uniquely aware of the misconduct in the jail. Our clients tell us all about it. The credibility of their claims are strong because they tell us under the auspices of attorney-client privilege. They don't want us to share their abuse with the court or this board because they fear retaliation from the warden and his staff. They tell us because we ask. They ask us not to repeat it. Returning to the count issue, the policy is that no one can get past the lobby during count. I laugh at myself at times when I describe myself as having a hard day. Of course I have difficult days. I signed up for a difficult job. It shouldn't be difficult for me to visit my clients, though. Count lasts from 10:30 to 11:30 a.m. and 2:30 to 3:30 p.m. unless you show up during count and request entry. In those cases, count lasts 45 minutes longer, and the warden will personally make you wait. I experienced this delay recently on Wednesday, April 26th, when I, along with 3 other attorneys from my office, were forced to wait for an hour when we tried to enter the jail during count. I didn't finish my visits until 6:30 p.m. that night. And I don't mind working late. As previously stated, I signed up for a hard job. I do mind waiting for an hour in the jail's lobby when I could be meeting with clients. The warden claims that this policy has always been in place and that hundreds of our experiences to the contrary were anomalous failures of enforcement. The warden asserts that previous occasions when he said that attorneys were allowed to come in during count never happened, and that anyone who remembers otherwise is wrong or lying. Because of the recent death in the jail and out of respect for your time, Attorney Howard asked his fellow public defenders to reserve their own comments and experiences until subsequent meetings. We hope to have a resolution to our issue before the next meeting in June. However, if we can't find a solution, we will be back to update the board and the public. We need this board to take action. Compel the Allegheny County Jail to make necessary accommodations for the benefit of all parties. Thank you.
Joe, all right. Joe Oddie.
What the system's done to me.
What the system's done to me.
There ain't no
If we cannot stop, could you please have them removed?
ain't no crime in being brown.
Ain't no crime in being brown.
Say, oh, oh, oh,
Don't touch me.
Say, mama, mama, can't you see? Mama, mama, can't you see?
Don't touch me.
Say, mama, mama, can't you see? I heard you. Say, mama, mama, can't you see?
Don't touch him. Don't touch him.
Stop.
Don't touch him.
Or what? Okay, go for it. Hey, go ahead, keep pushing, keep pushing. Reaction is safe. Be fucking careful. Put your hand.
Mr. Oddie.
Joe Otte, Joe-Otte. First of all, I've had the same experiences as Andy Howard and Art Ettinger, although I haven't been a public defender for 5 years.
Oh, no, we can't hear you. Can you speak into the mic, please?
Yes, so I've had the same experience as Art and Andy, although I haven't been a public defender for 5 years. And also, up until just recently, private attorneys were actually allowed in during the count, although it's more important for public defenders because they have a typical work day. But the reason I actually came here is relating to medical issues in the Allegheny County Jail. I have had numerous clients with medical issues in the Allegheny County Jail that were not taken seriously. This has been an ongoing problem since I've been an attorney, but it has been more acute lately, and I'm getting extremely frustrated with this. I won't talk about my most recent incident with the Allegheny County Jail, but I will talk about one from early 2021. My client was in the Allegheny County Jail. He was a 62-year-old with COPD. Okay? The vaccine was not out yet. The Allegheny County Jail had not been distributing it yet, and my client was diagnosed with COVID-19. I learned that he was diagnosed with COVID-19 when he called me from 7E on the jail, I believe it's 7E, and he told me that he was having shortness of breath and that he was afraid he was going to die. When I followed up with the Allegheny County Jail, they told me they had it under control. They did not have it under control. The next day, he called me desperately, telling me he couldn't breathe and he thought he was going to die. I had to use my network of people that I trust to find Donald Steckschulte, MD's phone number, his personal cell phone number. And I had to call Donald Steckschulte on his personal cell phone number to get my client medical attention. And so when the jail responds to the latest death in the Allegheny County Jail, and they tell you they did everything they could, they're probably goddamn lying to you. Okay? So check everything they tell you. Everything. That's all.
Thank you. Brad Korinsky.
Brad Korinsky, K-O-R-I-N-S-K-I.
Thank you.
Here to talk about the decades-long discussion that this board has had with itself in the jail as to whether this board is going to follow its governing statute and whether the jail is going to recognize that that statute governs the board. I think this is the only board in Pennsylvania that doesn't believe in its own governing statute. And I propose that the board make a resolution to vote to say, we believe, as absurd as it is, we believe that this statute governs our conduct and our affairs, and we believe that this statute requires us to have oversight over the jail. And if you can't believe in that, and if you can't vote for that resolution, just like a juror that can't vote to follow or can't follow the law because of their own conscience, recuse yourself, resign from the board, do something else. But if you're going to be on the board, follow the law. Follow the governing statute. And what will it take? We had the CEO of Renewal here, and maybe people disagree with what the man said, but he showed up. He answered tough questions. He was more forthright about a death at Renewal than we've ever heard anyone from the county jail be forthright. Amazingly, he didn't say, this could end up in litigation, I can't say anything. He answered questions. He was the CEO, came in a tough spot. What will it take for our CEO of the county to ever show up? The statute says he should show up, and I know he's listening. I know he's listening at home. You know, the only thing that motivates our CEO of our county is natural gas drilling and money. I live in the city, so he can't drill in my backyard. But if he shows up for the next 5 or 6 meetings, I promise, county executive, that I'll make a donation of $10,000 to the charity of your choice. Show up, follow the law. 412-760-7848. Text me. Have Amy Downs text me. Text me yourself. $10,000, charity of your choice. Show up and do your job and follow the law. Thank you. Woo!
Elizabeth Shangar.
Elizabeth Shongar, S-C-H-O-N-G-A-R.
Thank you, ma'am.
One of the key demands of the APA is we demand that the Allegheny County Jail allow incarcerated people to immediately see a doctor at their request. If this was the practice at the jail, James Washington likely would still be alive. As Bethany has stated, James Washington lay unconscious on the floor for several hours as others in his cell tried to get medical attention for him. It wasn't until after 9 a.m. that emergency medical staff finally entered the cell. And James is not the only one. Gerard Thomas passed away at the jail after asking for medical care for 3 days. The jail has a concentrated group of our most vulnerable, sick, and disabled neighbors. The jail must be run with their health and safety, as well as the health and safety of all staff, as a top priority. So I want a motion from the Jail Oversight Board stating that there is a goal to provide a doctor on demand at all times at Allegheny County Jail. The county controller must identify changes in the AHN contract that are needed to provide this care before the next board meeting. Of course, I just heard about him being on paternity leave. That might not be a reasonable deadline, but there should be a deadline for that. The board must request an estimate of the cost. The controller must find the money, perhaps from positions that never get filled. And the contract must be changed so incarcerated people will immediately see a doctor at their request.
Thank you, ma'am. Barbara Finch.
Good afternoon, Sister Barbara Finch, F-I-N-C-H.
Good afternoon.
I was an employee of the medical staff for 10 years at the Allegheny County Jail, and I recently received a document composed by my former colleagues about the conditions within the jail, and I have to say that they're worse. I'll share a few of these things, and if anyone wants copies, this was CC'd to you, Bethany. I don't know if you received it, but the rest of the board has not heard it. The first paragraph deals with the shortage of staff. There's not enough full-time, part-time, or PRN staff. There's too much emphasis on agency nurses, which doesn't allow for a continuity of care or understanding of procedures. Many of the nurses have to work 2, 3, or even 4 duties during an 8-hour shift. I experienced that. I left in 2018, and that was my experience as well. At times, I was a diabetic nurse. I was the only diabetic nurse in the building, and you wonder why you can't get around in time for everybody to get sufficient, timely medicine. Secondly, the mental health staff. They're being asked to do MedPass in general population. That is wrong. Their emphasis should be with the mental health inmates. Medical intake. It's been reported that hours go by and there's no one to work in medical intake. There is no physician, there is no pharmacy technician. There needs to be a pharmacy technician that gives all the supplies to the nurse so that she can do, or he can do his job. There has not been a steady lab tech. It's important, especially when you have to have emergency blood test or whatever. You should have someone staffed in that place. There has, since February, there has been 14 county employees resigned. Additionally, no director of nurses, assistant director of nursing, the health service administrator, the clinic coordinator, a detox nurse, and the drug and alcohol director, all in this time. And by the way, the administrators should be medically trained. To have a health service administrator that has no medical training is not appropriate. There was approximately 125 employees when the county first took over. There's less than half of that now. So I am begging you that your responsibility is to find the money to have appropriate staff. And a nurse's position is not just task-oriented. You're going to have these emergencies because a nurse doesn't have time to do the assessments that he or she must make. So please amend this.
Thank you very much.
And remember, Richard Lenhart.
Sharon Bonavolia.
Sharon Bonavolia, Bonavoglia. It is not a good evening when I have 3 names to add to the calling of those who have died under the jurisdiction of this Jail Oversight Board. Knowing that the NCCHC report led to a drastic decline in the suicides at the Allegheny County Jail, Penn strongly suggests that the JOB bring the NCCHC into the Renewal Center as well. As to the latest death inside ACJ, it is of paramount importance that the ACJ do a thorough and effective mortality review that is shared with the JOB and, most importantly, with the frontline staff that will need to be effectively trained in-house and in person to implement the changes clearly needed. I will quote from the NCCHC report on page 40, where it states, information pertaining to important operational issues, safety, staff safety, inmate safety, or the safety and security of the facility itself must be communicated. Staff, including line supervisors, indicated they don't hear information on critical incidents, specifically deaths and suicides, or follow-up or corrective information. This is a concern, especially with the lack of corrective information. Regardless of the circumstances, if a policy or procedure is discovered as deficient, it must be a point of communication to all staff. This is all from the NCCHC report. Last line, not communicating corrective actions could increase liability, as it could appear as deliberate indifference to what occurred. To claim that releasing James Washington prior to his death at the hospital might mean that a review is not needed is unconscionable. Along with truly effective mortality reviews are the needs for ongoing anonymous surveying of current staff and in-depth exit interviews. These are just a few of the concerns Penn has and will be part of our monthly conversations with the JOB liaison, and those monthly meetings with community members ought to be part of the job description for the liaison position, which was illegally documented today. Shamefully. Here are the names of the deceased. Please keep their family and friends in the forefront of your decisions as many of you approach the end of your tenure in seats of power over all the lives of those connected to the Allegheny County Jail and other places of incarceration. Richard Lenhart, Robert Blake, Cody Still, Daniel Pastorik, John Brady, Martin Buchek, Robert Harper, Vinkley Harris, Justin Brady, Paul Allen, Roger Millspaw, Paul Spisak, Gerald Thomas, Jerry Lee Ross Jr., Victor Joseph Zelenek, Ronald Andrus, Anthony Tallada, William Spencer, James Washington, and Damon Leroy Kays.
Thank you. John Kinstowitz.
John Kinstowitz, Kenstowicz. As we are aware, James Washington, age 42, died recently. He was in intake on Sunday, May 7th, tested positive for opiates, and died the following day. The National Commission on Correctional Health Care's recent mortality report concerning the jail noted the problem of detox nurses not working on the weekends. This report states the following. The facility has a detox nurse working Monday through Friday, day shift only. This sporadically timed assessment is inadequate for the management of these patients. Our review identified multiple patients whose detoxification was poorly managed. As a top priority, NCCHC recommended initiate detoxification monitoring and medication at the time of intake. A critical question is, what symptoms was James experiencing during withdrawal? And how were decisions made and care provided during withdrawal and detoxification, especially considering this was the weekend? The doctor in charge of intake needs to act humanely and do what is right, and order detox to an outside hospital when the jail staff is not able to provide detox and monitor people's conditions effectively. Cost should not be considered. We are talking about life and death. Will there be a mortality review done regarding James' death? According to the NCCHC mortality report, Allegheny County does not do mortality reviews, which is a violation of NCCHC Standard JA09, procedure in the event of an inmate death. How is the jail going to learn about preventing deaths at our jail if they don't do mortality reviews? I want to repeat that. How is the jail going to learn about preventing deaths at our jail if they don't do mortality reviews? James's death also raises continued concern about the staffing crisis at the jail. The jail has had 88 vacancies for medical and mental health providers at the jail. The jail administration, the Jail Oversight Board, has been aware of this lack of staffing and intake area for years, dating back to NCCHC's 2019 report. I quote, "We observed the nursing staffing was low in the intake area. Supervisors report a high attrition rate." The critical question remains, how are we going to intervene to treat this major staffing crisis at our jail that is a cause of so many serious problems at the jail? Last month, I presented to you a very comprehensive job satisfaction survey for our correctional officers. 95 correctional officers have responded to the survey, offering very insightful comments to the two open-ended questions of what are your recommendations for improvement that would reinforce your decision to continue to work at ACJ? And for your peers that terminated employment at ACJ, why do you think they left? I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Kinstowitz.
What's that?
Thank you. Thank you for your remarks. Charles Lewis.
Yes, hello. My name is Charles Lewis, Lewis.
Thank you.
I have much concerns about the board. Last meeting, I was here, and it was the first meeting that I have ever come to. But I wanted to see how it was run, and yeah, it's real bad. First of all, what I had said, you are not supposed to have any comments to me about my opinion. When I left here, I went out that door. Someone followed me out into the hallway, one of your board members. I'm not sure of which one, but he approached me. He came out there for that reason, to approach me and tell me about what I had said and tell me I was wrong. I mean, what kind of board is this, that you wait until someone gets out in the hall and not do it in front of the public? You have something to say it. I mean, you know, you're pushing Gestapo tactics. I mean, the way you just did with the people that were here, you know, the way you do this woman up here, the way you answer her, you don't want to say it. You don't want to, you know, be involved in it. You don't want the repercussions from it. But I want to know why this person came to the hallway and questioned me about what I had said, had anything to say about it. Why is that when you're not supposed to be doing that? Can you answer that now?
No, I can't.
Was it you, Mr. Kraus?
No.
Well, who was it?
Don't respond to public.
He told me, he played cowboy and Indians and told me that, oh, I'm the sheriff. That's all he told me. I asked him who he was. He said, I'm the sheriff. So what's that? You know, is that the way board members do? Is that the way all of you do? I know you really treat this woman here real bad when she asks questions. And you're trying to be above the law? That's all I got.
Thank you very much, sir. Jody Lincoln.
Hi. First off, congratulations to Councilperson Hallam and Controller O'Connor on your successful elections. I believe that Councilperson, yeah, woo! Go Bethany. Councilperson Hallam's resounding win is a clear mandate on the public's desire for an end to the human rights abuses at Allegheny County Jail. One of those abuses that has come to light over the past couple of meetings is the strip searching of children who are being held at ACJ. Warden Harper has made his disdain for these children clear, ignoring presumptions of innocence and showing no concern for their well-being. While courts across the country have placed minimal limits on strip searches of children in detention, and court cases allowing strip searches of adults is used to justify these strip searches, it doesn't make it right. The research says, the research that has been done around strip searches performed on teenagers says that this can cause children to experience anxiety, depression, loss of concentration, sleep disturbances, difficulty performing in school, phobic reactions, shame, guilt, and other long-lasting emotional scars. Strip searches can also re-traumatize children who are survivors of sexual abuse. The negative consequences of strip searches can last for years. In the most egregious cases, staff members may use strip searches to intentionally abuse children, creating an even greater risk of harm. Strip searches go against what we teach children about their right to bodily autonomy, to privacy and self-esteem. And this impact is heightened with teenagers who are going through puberty and their bodies are changing. The American Bar Association and the Juvenile Law Center have published best practices and model alternative policies that consider the well-being of children and emphasize only using strip searches in the most extreme cases. I printed out a few copies of these and would like to distribute them to the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rachel Radke. Rachel Radke. Thank you, ma'am.
Rachel Radke, R-A-D-K-E.
Thank you.
guys are tall today. Okay. As a result of drug war policies, the opioid supply in Pittsburgh and nearly all major cities is now nearly 100% made up of synthetic opioids like fentanyl. Despite its potency, fentanyl has a much shorter half-life than heroin, causing users to go into withdrawal multiple times a day. Drug traffickers and dealers have attempted to solve this problem by adding xylazine to the supply. Xylazine is a veterinary tranquilizer that is now present in the majority of Pittsburgh's illicit fentanyl supply. This presents a wide variety of new challenges. ACJ must update detox and overdose response protocols to meet the new challenge, or we will see greater rates of relapse, overdose, and loss of life. When people in active addiction come into the jail, most are experiencing withdrawal from both fentanyl and xylazine. While the literature on treatment protocols is still emerging, addiction medicine and toxicology experts recommend that different drugs like tizanidine, gabapentin, phenobarbital be used for management of xylazine withdrawal. These aren't used for standard opioid detox. If this is not currently happening at the jail, then we are putting people through unnecessary pain and suffering. Additionally, overdose response protocols have to be updated to match the new dangers. People who overdose on the current supply should be given both Narcan and rescue breaths until paramedics arrive. Every member of the ACJ staff should be carrying Narcan and be trained to administer these rescue breaths. Now, let's talk about Vivitrol. Buprenorphine and methadone are highly efficacious forms of treatment for opioid use disorder. Vivitrol, in comparison to buprenorphine and methadone, is consistently found to be significantly less effective. People only given the option of Vivitrol relapse more often, spend less time in recovery, and overdose at nearly 3 times the rate of those on the other forms of MOUD. ACJ's claim that providing Vivitrol to all inmates with OUD is sufficient as an approach to MOUD induction is dangerous and either insincere or naive. We have been fighting this epidemic long enough to know that that does not work. I understand that those of you who manage the jail's operations may have concerns about diversion, but fears of diversion cause buprenorphine to be underutilized in jails, which we know leads to higher rates of post-release overdose. Several studies over the past couple years have explored this issue and found that the facilities that expand their buprenorphine and methadone induction services have not found diversion to be a concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly Andrews.
She's not here. You kicked her out.
Fair enough.
I'll take her time. Don't worry.
Joe Marizzi. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. All right. How about Tim Stevens?
Good afternoon. I have a recommendation that you not have that young man in this room again. I've watched him. He does not have the sensitivity when you have emotional people in the room. That officer should not be in this room. Just a recommendation. I want to continue the comments from John Konstovitz. I thought they were important because I had seen his report. It continues with data concerning the 12 closed-ended questions concerning such matters as job benefits, forced overtime, training will be organized into pie charts. The comprehensive report, including an analysis of the data, will be provided to you at the next JOB meeting. After this report is completed, community groups will be asked or asking to work with the union, the medical, mental health staff of our jail to continue to work on the critical issue of staff retention and staff turnover. Isn't it time the board work with the staff at the jail, the union, and community groups to confront this problem of the staffing crisis at our jail? What is more important? I do want to ask, I don't know if you all do this, but do you review the comments after the meeting? Not necessarily the same meeting, but to review what people actually said, so you can go over and see if there's some logic and things that you could actually do. I'm just wondering, if you didn't, you absolutely should. I hope the answer is yes. Also, I'm hoping that what was shared earlier with regard to the staffing crisis with nurses and what happens on the weekends is handled so possibly the death of James Washington on May 8th would not occur. We don't know if it would have or not. But the consideration of people being moved to a regular hospital on the weekend to have that situation checked, I think you should really look at that possibility as a way of saving lives. The mortality review should be an absolute for the Jail Oversight Board. That should not be even a question. I hope that you will take that not in consideration, but actually implement it. Again, my hope is that all that you hear today and that you've heard the last few months, that you actually take a few hours, sit together with nobody around, and just review what people have said to you. Because I'm sure you will agree a lot of it is emotional, because it should be. But a lot of it is logical and implementable. I ask that you do all of the above.
Alan Gunther.
Hi, my name is Alan Gunther, Guenther.
Thank you.
And I'm with the Quaker Working Group Against Racism and the Pittsburgh Pieces Possible Coalition. I just want to acknowledge all of the people who are here, and if you would hold your signs up. And so many people have worked so hard to bring change to this board and to this jail. Something wonderful happened 2 days ago. The public voted for Sarah Innamorato, who promised the most complete and sweeping change in this county and to this jail. A new day is coming. These human rights abuses you are committing and the abuses of the law are going to end. Your time in power will be short, and it can't end soon enough.
Keena, my apologies. Keena James. Sorry about that.
My name's Keena James. K-Y-N-A-J-A-M-E-S. I'm the coalition organizer for the Alliance for Police Accountability. Shout out to the coalition being here. Appreciate y'all always showing up. I don't even know where to start. Okay, we can start with CEO of the Renewal Center coming up here and telling bold-faced lies. Okay, I talked and stop referring to him as the man that jumped out the 7th floor window. He has a name. His name was Thomas William Spencer III. First and foremost, okay. It is an absolute lie that they immediately notified next of kin. His mom called my phone, saying that she called the facility from 3:49 p.m. till 8 o'clock p.m. and was told by a friend of his what happened to him on Messenger on Facebook at 8:02 p.m. that night. So let's tell the truth. He also did not lock himself in the room. He was locked in the room after asking for help for 48 hours. So let's be honest about what's going on. Tell the truth. Orlando Harbor, we're still defying the solitary confinement ban. I want to remind you all that each and every jail oversight board member can be sued, as well as the warden. And our patience is running very, very thin. So let's let that be known. You spent more time writing that statement about James Washington, more time trying to get his charges dropped so that you could relieve yourself of responsibility than you did trying to save that man's life. You wrote in that report how you saved somebody back in February. You wrote in that report how you gave 4 doses of Narcan, but you didn't write in that report how you gave him Suboxone first, which he threw up because he wasn't in withdrawal. He was in overdose. You didn't write in that report how you left him there for 4 to 6 hours until he was then found unconscious and then proceeded to give him Narcan. So no, we do not congratulate you and your piss poor staff. You are literally, by far, the worst. In my eyes, man, you are the worst, because you are a black man who treats our people like the bottom of the barrel. And I am so happy you're about to lose your job. And plus, we're coming for that pension too, sir.
Tanisha Long.
Before I begin, I'm going to let you know I'm taking 6 minutes because I'm taking Kim Andrews' 3 minutes back. She gave them to me. You already had it allotted. You don't care about the rules? Me neither.
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
So I'm getting 6.
You'll have 3.
I'm still going to talk. But it is what it is, because I don't care anymore. I do not care anymore. You are embarrassing. You have 2 sitting judges on this jail oversight board who do not care about the rules. They do not respect the public. Online public comments for this meeting were shut down way before the 24-hour window. So people who would be here to speak, and this is why I'm taking some minutes back, people who would be here to speak, who would have their thoughts written down, they couldn't even do that because you limited their right to publicly comment online. You rearranged the order of the Jail Oversight Board meeting to accommodate other people's schedules because you don't care about the public. You rearranged the date. I have a flight to catch in an hour. And I'm here because I care more about the people in this jail than you do. You have 2 sitting judges on here, one who sits on mental health court but cannot understand how traumatizing it is to have white police officers physically pushing and putting their hands on 2 black people. You can't understand that trauma, but you sit on as a judge on mental health court? You can't understand that? You can't understand the trauma that these families go through when they have to watch Miss Hallam ask for answers about why their loved one has died in the jail, and Judge Halsey meets us with some whataboutism to try to advocate for the lawyer. Are you his solicitor? Are you his lawyer? I thought he was right there. Everything this jail does is aided by you, Judge Halsey. It's aided by the people who sit on this board and let these things go off. You're responsible. And I think it's deeply wild that you sit up here and believe that what you did here today will not come with consequences. It is deeply wild that you don't believe that I won't be coming for you, that people here will not be coming for you, that you make the face you want. Remember your quote from the last Jail Oversight Board meeting, "Don't let this robe fool you," when you was walking outside the jail? Because we threaten people as judges around here.
When people threaten me, absolutely.
I'm still talking. Don't interrupt me.
Absolutely.
Still talking.
We do get what we want, remember that.
We all do.
When we organize, we move. And we move for these families. And we move for the parents of kids in the jail who are calling me and telling me that their medical needs aren't being met, that their kids are being strip searched, while the warden admits that he has a full-body scanner that he could be using, and instead he wants to strip kids naked. Why? For the trauma. Why do you interrupt Bethany Hallam? For the trauma. Why do you push through a liaison? When that vote wasn't even up for public discussion, we didn't even get to talk about it. But I've seen you sit here time and again and tell Bethany Hallam that she can't put a motion on the agenda because it wasn't already there.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Long.
So the rules are for you, right? They're not for all. This isn't a law for all. It's a law for Judge Halsey. And you sit up here and you make, I'm still talking, you make rules in the way you want. And then outside that hallway, these officers try to get Kim Andrews to go into an elevator? If you knew that woman's history, and if you're not tired of getting sued, this jail was successfully sued for tasing her in an elevator. And then you just had your officers try to put her in an elevator. If you want to perpetuate trauma, take his job when he's done for it. Take his job. He got the pension. Judge Halsey just stepped down. Do that job. We're sick of it. I'm so tired of you. I'm so tired of you treating her with disrespect. And for the two men back there who spoke to her like she was trash, I don't know what level of white privilege made you think that you, as men, could step up here and speak to women who are counsel women in the manner that you did, but the tone I didn't like was yours. When I said I was taking Kim Andrews' minutes, I meant it. Don't silence us. This is a public meeting. You're here for us. The Sunshine Act exists for a reason. For you to just push through votes to say, I don't care about the law? Why are you a judge, bro? Seriously.
Make sure people are allowed to submit public comment.
You've done everything to limit the public's access to these meetings, from changing them, from not updating the meeting time and date on the Jail Oversight Board website, from not opening up public comments online, from changing the order. You've done everything to make sure that we don't get to participate in this process and that it operates under a veil of secrecy. I'm sick of you.
We will pack your courtroom.
I'm sick of you.
We'll pack your courtroom every day.
That's it. That's all I have to say.
Ann McStay. Ann McStay. Is there, oh.
So I'm Ann McStay, A-N-N M-C-S-T-A-Y.
Thank you.
After all of the articulate comments, the heartfelt comments, the distress that I've seen in the people here, and not just people who have, family or friends in jail, but people who defend them and people who are trying to keep them alive and not die from drug overdoses. That I, as a citizen who have come before you asking, for example, that our taxes be invested in improving not just the lives of these individuals who are incarcerated, but the lives of the people, the staff that take care of them, so that when those incarcerated people are freed, when they come out, they have a chance to be better participants in our society. That's all I want. I want that investment to mean something. We invest in schools. We invest in all kinds of things, progressive job opportunities, tech, all kinds of things. And if these are the least of the least, a lot of these people grew up with no one caring for them or unable to care for them. The people, maybe they didn't have parents able to. They didn't have the education. You and I have been to excellent schools. We have been fed and clothed since we were babies. But you've got in your hands people who, for whatever reason, didn't grow up like we did. And they're expected to abide by the law, and they haven't done so. Whether they were mentally ill and did something strange, or they stole because they had a drug addiction, they didn't do the right thing in the regular world, but they were trying to survive. We all have suits and good clothes. We have our medical care paid for. We have pensions before us. We have Social Security that we're sure we're going to get. And then you have people who don't, and they're not just the people in the jail, they're the children in this society who don't have the opportunities we do, who go to school hungry. There are people in this country who don't want free lunches for children. Our priorities need to be oriented toward the future and the investment for now as well as going into the future. And what I ask as a citizen and a taxpayer and a human being is that you look at the people and listen to them, not because people get upset, But listen to what they're saying, that suggestion that you actually review what goes on in these meetings and you list for yourselves how many times healthcare was mentioned, how many times staffing issues. If a person cannot keep people employed, what does that say? How do you address the system that you have responsibility for if you don't really talk about it and you don't say in public what you feel? What has broken my heart here is that some people are looking at their phones while we're talking, and some people are not looking at us. You all are very kindly and very politely looking at me, but you don't always look at the people. You need to look inside them and yourselves. And when you hear something that is true and you don't support it, or you hear something that questions your decision, if there is a legal issue about who can sit on this board, then talk to us in public and have our solicitor, our lawyer for the county, address it. We just go over and over, sliding over things that matter to us, or we wouldn't be here. There have got to be nearly 100 people here. We matter, and this is your county, and these are your children and your young people and your old people who sometimes don't do things right. But we have to do things right, or we have no right to be here, no reason to be here. You are paid by my taxes. Please remember that.
Thank you. Marion Damick.
What can I say after that? Really? Today's reports to you have been coming from the heart. You've got to realize we're talking about human beings that you are in charge of. And I really feel that you don't, well, I would not to say, I know Fitzgerald, he's a neighbor. In all the years I have attended board meetings, which are plenty more because I'm 97, he's been here twice. He's always had a sub. You never know if the sub tells him what comes over. You never hear anything about it. We shouldn't even, I can't argue about him now because he won't be anymore. He'll be a, we're going to have a new change. Hopefully, that person, whoever it is, will take charge and really see that something is done with all these people. How you could sit there and listen to it and not think, my God, can't we change this? Yes, you can change it. And yes, you should change it. And I'm praying to God that yes, you will. I think, thank you. And really, really, it's pathetic. I was going to talk, about I did one thing good for the medical. Actually, I talked to a doctor, a friend of mine. I mean, he knew I was involved with legal stuff, with things, with the jail. And he said, do you need anything? And I said, yes, we need you to volunteer to call up and see if you can be helpful, a sub or whatever, at the jail. And he right then and there picked up the phone and called and left a message. And I saw him a little after recently. I said, what happened? He said, well, they sent me, pages and pages that I have to fill out. But they did something. They did really reply to him as a chance that maybe you can get. If I can get one, you can get one. And if each one of you get one, you finally have a medical staff that might be able to help the people here. I pray to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Love that lady. I love her. Hopefully everyone's had an opportunity to review the meeting minutes from the April 6th meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Everyone second the motion? Any opposed to passing the minutes from the meeting? Motion passes. That being said, we'll have the warden's report.
Good afternoon, Board. Visits. The jail hosted contact visits for juveniles for the third time in April. The jail also held its first contact visits for our kitchen workers on Saturday, May the 13th. Therapy dog. Link, the AHN therapy dog, made a second visit to work with the juveniles on April the 25th. Link also came to the jail 2 times during Correctional Employees Week. Correctional Employees Week. The jail recognized all of its employees during the annual Correctional Employees Week from May 8th to May 12th. We held our annual memorial services outside and were able to invite retirees and family members for the first time in 4 years. Retirees and family members were also invited to a luncheon that followed the memorial service. Finally, we had a full day of therapy dog visits for staff members on Friday. Now I would like to turn it over to Deputy Warden Clark to talk about programs and services at ACJ.
Good evening, Board. For reintegrative services, in April, the jail transferred 61 individuals to alternative housing and released a total of 25 individuals to inpatient substance use programs through the diversion program. Also in the month of April, the medical assistance program in the jail assisted a total of 87 individuals with completing medical assistance applications to ensure that they have health insurance benefits upon release. Reentry services. Programming in the jail has returned to pre-pandemic status. This has allowed us to serve more individuals in a classroom setting. We are also reassessing services and programs that we provide to better meet the needs of the individuals that we serve. In doing so, we are looking to engage community partners to further expand upon the programs and services currently provided in the jail. In June, contact visitation will be expanded to include program participants. With this expansion, contact visitation will occur in the jail every Saturday. Voting for the primary election took place in the jail on Thursday, May 11th. Mr. Pischke and the caseworkers facilitated the distribution and collection of 35 absentee ballots for individuals in the jail. Since the jail is resuming pre-pandemic operations, we are excited to be coordinating with voter advocacy groups that will assist us with voter registration and education for the general election in the fall. These organizations will assist us with presenting voter information directly to individuals on their housing units. For the first time since the pandemic began, we will be hosting in-person graduation ceremony for individuals who have graduated high school. The ceremony will take place June 7th, and each graduate will be permitted to have 2 loved ones come to the jail for this graduation ceremony and celebration. We currently have 8 graduates that will be participating in the graduation ceremony. In the fall, we will resume our partnership with Duquesne University, who will be facilitating inside-out classes in the jail. These classes focus on social justice issues and incorporate discussions and group projects into the educational process. This month, the Foundation of Hope pre-release program added an additional men's 12-step meeting and mindful meditation group. Hope graduate classes for individuals who are leaders and graduates from the Hope program, but still wish to continue to work on their personal development, were expanded to include the Foundation of Life and Theotherapy, a multifaceted approach to healing. This month, PAR began providing Parents in the Know program to our male and female population. This program focuses on healthy relationships and how to be a good role model for children. In addition to Parents in the Know, PAR has also partnered with us to start educational groups for survivors of trauma with our female population. These groups encompass several topics, including how to deal with trauma and its effects on the brain, healthy relationships, self-esteem, and coping mechanisms. Community Kitchen of Pittsburgh began Serve Safe training this week with the kitchen workers. The program teaches Department of Health required food handling and safety regulations. At the conclusion of the class, the participants will take a test to become Serve Safe certified. This certification can be utilized to obtain employment post-release. Serve Safe also offers a managerial class that will be offered to those who are interested in a career in restaurant management. We are grateful to our community partners and program staff who provide services and support to our population. We will continue to strive to obtain more opportunities to help meet the individuals' needs in our jail. That concludes my report this month for programs. I'll turn it back over to the warden for the remainder of his report.
The Chaplains Department, the Foundation of Hope, the jail's partner that provide chaplain services, pre-release and aftercare services, welcome a new executive director in April. Reverend Dr. LaWanda Butler joined the staff. Reverend Dr. Butler previously served as the executive director of the Hero House of Substance Abuse Intervention and Prevention, Discharge and Release Center. The DRC assessed 346 individuals and distributed 70 boxes of Narcan in April. Both these figures are the highest figures so far in 2023. The DRC continues to make referrals to the community partners for services and assistance and to provide resources to assist individuals upon their release from the ACJ. As noted last month with the NCCHC reviews, they recommended that our staff provide as much privacy as possible when communicating with inmates about health care issues. As a result of this recommendation, we are in the process of eliminating all cell-side interviews. This process began with the mental health pods in March and has expanded to our segregated pods earlier this month. The Employee of the Month. Finally, I would like to announce that Correctional Officer Dalen Kerselli and licensed practical nurse Gwen Smittle have been named ACJ's Employees of the Month for the month of April. I will now turn it over to Chief Deputy Warden Beeson for his report.
Thank you, Warden. Good evening, Board. Staffing update. Our current cadet class of 13 is scheduled to graduate on Friday, May 26th, and they'll be placed on a schedule on Sunday, May 28th. Our next cadet academy is scheduled to begin on Tuesday, June 20th, and we held an additional physical agility test this afternoon. State transfers, we currently have 18 males, 1 female with 300 Bs, 13 males with detainers, 5 males with open cases. The longest wait time on a 300B transfer was received on March 29th, and the shortest wait time is from yesterday, May 17th. Federal inmates, we currently have 33, 19 of which are United States Marshal Service holds, and 14 are federal transfers for Allegheny County Court. And our use of force numbers for April 2023 was 33. I'll turn it over to Dr. Brinkman to continue the deputy report.
Hello, everybody. For medications for opioid use disorder and the expansion of our efforts, in the month of April, there were 19 prescribed oral naltrexone with 2 individuals receiving Vivitrol injection prior to their community release. 112 individuals were treated with Suboxone, with 14 individuals treated with Sublocade, and of those, 6 patients transitioned from Suboxone to Sublocade. Methadone continuation had treated 40 individuals with 21 current patients, and additionally 4 patients in alternative housing. To continue expansion of services with those with opioid use disorder, we've projected estimates of eligible patients, patient participation from our past data that we've had in the last year. This has helped us to determine some of the resources and steps that we would need to proceed. Given the data based on past patient admissions, our current access to resources would not support complete induction, and we will be moving through a progressive plan to reach that goal. To better illustrate the work needed to reach our goal, I wanted to list a few of the key milestones we'll need to reach over that process. Gaining access to the medication at the new volume, as there are some manufacturer maximums currently in place for us. We are working with our pharmacy to increase the current cap on medications available to ACJ. Engaging in dialogue with community providers to ensure they're willing, prepared, and able to accept the volume of patients upon release. These programs need to be both high quality and low barrier to meet the needs of inmates returning to the community. In our current state of continuing existing MOUD treatment, Patients have established care teams in the community, and they can be referred at discharge. We're working with DHS to coordinate communications with the community providers so an effective referral process is established to absorb that volume that we would be creating. We'll need to hire some staff to support the significant increase for medication distribution and counseling services to accompany the medication-assisted treatments. And positions have already been posted, but have had some difficulty filling due to lack of qualified candidates. And finally, operational protocols will be revised to support the volume of services internal within the jail. And they're being developed as we expand the numbers eligible in our progressive expansion of eligibility criteria. For Torrance commitments and admissions, during April, we had 4 patients admitted and transferred. 5 patients were committed to Torrance State Hospital. 4 had their commitments for competency restoration rescinded due to clinical stabilization. And currently 28 are awaiting admission to Torrance State Hospital, with the longest waiting since February 15th. In March, we had 1 individual identified as a Tier 5 in our mental health tier system, and 41 unique individuals identified as a Tier 4 in this system. Our medical sick call requests, as of this afternoon, had 11 with the longest waiting 4 days. Our mental health requests had 4 with the longest waiting 7 days. Our psychiatrist requests have 175 with the longest waiting 22 days. Our mental health specialist requests, which are follow-ups to the mental health ones, are 12 with the longest waiting 5 days. As a part of our recruitment efforts, this month our team attended a virtual job fair sponsored by CareerLink. And our department celebrated 2023's Nurses Week in addition to the Correctional Employees Week last week. This is an opportunity to bring awareness to the unique specialty that correctional nursing is. In every setting, nurses make a greater impact on patients than the medical treatments that they provide, because nursing is built upon foundations and emphasizing more than medicine. When you apply this dedication to a correctional setting, it means supporting social determinants of health that make our population more vulnerable than others, which means building patient confidence in maintaining their own health and empowering patients to break recidivism cycles. This dedication is demonstrated in more than their daily work or public recognition like I've offered in this meeting. In the past year, 2 of our nurses have become certified correctional healthcare professionals, while others are currently studying for that process. Again, I cannot pass this opportunity to identify the commitment that our healthcare staff have serving our patients. So thank you all.
Dr. Brinkman, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done. My apologies. Go ahead, Warden. No, go ahead. I'm sorry, I thought she was done. Go ahead.
So, Your Honor, we are available for any questions that you may have, but I do want to say one thing, and I want to say one thing pertaining to the comments made by the public defender. Before the COVID pandemic, professional visitors, to include the public defenders and other private attorneys, had the capability of coming to our jail to visit their clients in person and or making a video request through the level 5 video station. But during COVID, we had difficulty making sure that all of our professional visitors, our lawyers, and everybody had access to their clients. So we built a level 1 video complex so that we could accommodate everybody to meet their clients on level 1. So with the lifting of the COVID mandate and et cetera, and staffing issues, we closed level 1 and we went back to pre-COVID, where attorneys, professional visitors can make their appointments through the level 5 visits, video visits, or they can come in person. But one of the things that I want to say to the public defenders is this: we are willing to meet with them, and if there's anything else that we can do to accommodate them, we're willing to meet. So I just wanted to say that, Your Honor. So we are open for any questions that you may have.
Could you address their concern? I don't know if you have an answer, but could you address their concerns regarding their inability to visit during count? Because I do know when I was involved with the public defender's office, that was not as much of an issue, I have to say. So can you comment on that or address that concern?
One of the most important things as a correctional agency is the accountability of our incarcerated individuals. Now, if the attorney is already up on the level, they will be able to continue their visit with their client. But if the attorney is coming in while we're in the middle of accounting for everybody, it's no way we can move an individual to see that attorney while we're in the middle of accounting for everybody. So no movement is made during the count, and it has never been, and that's best correctional practice.
Okay. Question, is it possible that some of your employees possibly have not gotten that memo, and during the count, they're asking attorneys to leave? Is that possible?
Yeah, Your Honor, anything's possible, but what I would expect that if there's anything like that that comes up, notification is made to us, you know what I mean?
Okay. All right. I had another question for Dr. Brinkman. You mentioned that, and I've done just a tiny bit of research regarding Sublocade and Suboxone, and you mentioned that a number of incarcerated individuals were switched from Suboxone to Sublocade. Can you speak as to why that's the best practice and why that decision was made?
Usually that's a one-on-one decision that's made with the patient and the treatment team. Maybe the patient doesn't want a once daily or twice daily medication, and they would rather have a long-acting injectable like Sublocade, where you only have to take it roughly every 28 days. So it's more of an individualized basis. Others have been, if they have not been able to be compliant with their treatment plan and they have failed some of the other treatment measures, one of the last final options is to transition from Suboxone to Sublocade because it hadn't worked originally.
Okay. So I was informed that there was a concern regarding Suboxone that it could be given to other incarcerated individuals, where Sublocade is injected, and it was less of a concern.
Correct. That is very true, but it's not necessarily your question.
Absolutely, it does. Okay. Last question. No, I have two questions. One more question. Voting. Do you find that the number of people that voted in the primary, has that number increased versus past elections, or do you feel that it's pretty much been the same?
It has pretty much been the same, comparable to other primary elections.
Okay. And one more question for the warden, if I may. So understanding that parties are not permitted to move around during count, is it still the practice that from the start, I don't know what time that starts, but the start of business when visiting opens, is it still permissible for attorneys to visit during the entire day until it used to be maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock? Is that still the case? Because I know before you came, there was a policy of asking people to leave during the count, and at different scheduled times during the day, people were being asked to leave. Is there an issue with the attorneys visiting during that open visiting period, despite their inability to move around during count?
Attorneys can visit from like 8 a.m. all the way to 7 p.m. They just can't come in during the count.
Meaning not come in, meaning not move around in the building, but they're permitted to come in, but they'd have to wait until count is over?
Yes.
And the count is scheduled at a certain time every day?
Yes.
Okay, and how long does count usually take?
Hour, 45 minutes,
45
hour.
minutes. Okay. All right. Well, I'm sure they may have some questions or concerns that they want to continue that conversation, maybe in a different form. I think that's a fair statement.
And that's
I think I appreciate their concern regarding seeing their clients.
Absolutely.
And so I think the goal is to meet in the middle on that issue.
And Your Honor, we're willing to meet with them again because we met with them once already, but we're willing to meet with them to try to resolve some of the issues.
Judge Lazaro.
I mean, I clearly have some questions about that because, I have never heard from as many attorneys that they can't do something with their case because they haven't had a chance to see their client as I have recently. I understand during COVID that became a concern. Obviously, the jail was shut down, but then it seemed to really level off, and I wasn't hearing from any defense attorneys that they couldn't meet with their clients. And now all of a sudden, I'm getting that a lot. That's a ton of postponements. All of our goal is to get people out of the Allegheny County Jail. I think that's the goal of every single person here, right? And we can't do that if cases have to be postponed because we cannot get attorneys to meet with them to discuss things. So I don't know what changed, but it is obvious to me, sitting in the courtroom every day, that something has changed and that we are having much more trouble getting people to see their clients. So whatever it is, I'd like to get to the bottom of it and get it fixed so that not only the public defenders, but the private attorneys also will have better access and faster access to their clients. Along those same lines, the other thing that I've been hearing consistently is about the computers that are brought in for discovery. there is so much body cam now. There's so much video out there on every single case. And it is impossible for an attorney to sit there and go through that video with their client during visiting hours. So they get computers that are specially done so that they can't access, the people that are looking at them can't access anything else, right? And my understanding has been from multiple people that their clients are not getting access to those computers to be able to look at their discovery. And that is absolutely so important, because when you have, for goodness sakes, a phone dump, you know, that has thousands upon thousands of pages and video and pictures, you can't give them a computer for an hour and expect them to be able to look at all of that stuff in an hour. It's going to take multiple. And my understanding is that the timing has been restricted on those computers when the incarcerated individuals have access to those computers. So I don't know whether you can talk to that, whether you're aware of that, but that clearly is something that has to change, because they need to have access to the discovery so that they can adequately prepare their cases.
Your Honor, I can speak to that.
I'm like hearing this voice. Where'd that come from? Sorry.
So over here. Everybody that has a court-ordered laptop at the facility is placed onto a schedule, which is typically during the 7 to 3 shift. Okay, so the escorts from the levels that the particular is housed on come down and get the laptops. They take them up to the level, give them to the individual. They review them for the 8 hours. We pick them up shortly before 3 o'clock, before shift change, to return them to where they're stored. Okay, if we're made aware that somebody needs more discovery, all they have to do is ask, and we give them more access to it.
Well, what I've been being told is that they are not getting them from 7 to 3, that they are getting them for maybe an hour or a couple days a week, where they only get them a couple of days a week. And literally everything now is so video. I mean, you know, Elliot, you see that all the time. It's just, there's so much of it, and it takes forever to look at.
Sure.
And my understanding from, and it's not just from one person, this is from multiple attorneys asking me why they can't have their clients have the laptops every day from that 7 to 3 period, which is what they thought they were going to have. And they're telling me that they're not having it. So that's what I would like to make sure happens.
We can definitely look into it. If you have particular instances, I can take that information and we can definitely investigate it.
Okay.
Do you know how many laptops you have that are available for?
Last count I had was 63.
Oh, okay. I got the impression there were only maybe like 4 or 5. So.
Oh no, there's so many of them now, because everything's video.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
The other question that I had was about the diversion program, and it sort of disappointed me that there were only 25 people that were sent to diversion. Yeah, you know, so I know that when we see somebody in the courtroom, we will actually send an email down and say, like, can you consider this person for diversion? How else is it happening that people are identified for diversion? And diversion is where they're going to be sent to an inpatient treatment program outside of the Allegheny County Jail for substance abuse help. And so 25 is great, but for some reason, I thought it was going to be way higher than that.
Your Honor, our referrals for the diversion program come from the court. So
it has to only come from the court?
Sometimes we will advocate on people's behalf, but generally, those are orders that come from the judge through motions. We get referrals through the Gagnon 1 hearing process, and when those come through, I send those up to the court liaison unit, who will then go to the judge for approval. But once we get an approval from the judge for those programs, for a diversion program, we see them, assess them, and get them placed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, once you assess them, it seems to go fast, and I appreciate that. I just didn't know that where those were coming from. Is there any way to expand the consideration for people into diversion, such as during intake? When we discover that people have, you know, major substance abuse problems, that we can sort of get them on that diversion list and contact the court proactively?
Yes, we are looking at some diversionary measures to make that happen.
Do we have any time frame on when that's going to happen?
Not at this time, but I will report that once we do.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Hallam.
I didn't raise my hand. Everyone else
But you will.
I have a question.
Mr. Urbanka.
I guess the deputy warden could probably answer this. Is there a written policy, going back to the visitation issue, is there a written policy on the books that you could email to the board so that we could take a look?
I'm sorry, which policy?
For the attorneys visiting, the defense attorneys visiting. Do you have a written policy on the books?
I'm sure we have one referencing count time.
Okay. Could you email that to the board?
I can look into it. Yeah.
Okay, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Hallam?
Thank you so much. So I do want to start with what the public defenders showed up for today, because I could just tell that when yins were answering and they're all shaking their heads that it was not matching up what they've been experiencing and what the jail administration is saying. It seems very, very clear that that's the case. So I just specifically want to ask, so when an attorney and whoever, I cannot tell anymore who questions are supposed to be addressed to, whenever an attorney is there for a visit, let's say they get there before count happens while they're in there meeting with a client. Now they want to go see another client on a different pod, a different floor. Are they trapped where they're at when count happens?
You're asking if they're seeing a client on a particular level, that visit is ended and we're in count time. The next visit is on a different level?
Correct.
We can get them to that level, but their client will not come out until the count is cleared.
So they are just sitting in the jail wasting their whole day waiting for you to clear count, which, knowing how short-staffed you have been for so long, probably takes a long time.
I can't say what wasting their day is. We're accounting for our prisoners, as the warden said. So when we're done with that, then we'll resume the client visits.
So I know that past practices were that you would move the incarcerated individuals around to allow them to meet with their clients, because again, we don't want to have a backlog in the court. We don't want to have people sitting in the jail unnecessarily just because they are not able to meet with their clients. So is there some way that we can at least agree to what is happening right now versus what is supposed to be happening? Because it seems like there are some very differing perspectives here.
I'm not sure where the disconnect is.
I know that's exactly what I'm trying to figure out. Where is the disconnect?
Well, as the warden said, we're willing to meet with the public defender's office to see alternatives, okay? But movement of our population during count time is not one of those.
Okay, but it is my understanding, and it seems that it was admitted in words from the warden, that you already met with the public defenders, a representative from the public defender's office, and that these issues were not resolved.
We had a meeting, a few weeks ago, correct?
And all of these issues were raised, like nothing that you're hearing today was new? You've heard all of those complaints before?
Very similar, yes.
Okay, and then what about the screen sharing? I was told that something that was discussed was specifically about the screen sharing, and that's still, as of today, not something that they're able to do in the video visits.
So, Ms. Hallam, again, as I stated, all of the issues that was brought to our attention today were brought to our attention before. Tomorrow, not tomorrow, but sometime in the future, maybe tomorrow, I want to meet with the lawyers again so we can try to resolve them. So all of the issues that they brought up, we're going to meet so that we resolve them.
But you knew about them before today, a month before today, and you still haven't resolved them. So why would I think that one more meeting would change that?
It may not change it. We may get together and not be able to come up with a resolution, but I assure you we're going to meet with them again to try to come up with a solution. So I can't answer any of those questions until I sit down with them and actually meet with them again.
Well, we have a jail board meeting 2 weeks from today, since this one was so kindly delayed. So maybe you could do that before the next jail oversight board meeting, so they don't have to keep showing up after hours, after they're already off the clock, to come and complain to you.
We will try.
Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate it. Next thing I want to talk about, I didn't hear any online public comments. I know we're supposed to be reading online public comments. I don't know if anybody else on the board remembers the last time one was read in a meeting. Maybe Judge Halsey, since you've been seeming to try to take control of things here, can you speak as to why you haven't been acknowledging online public comments?
I haven't received any public comments.
But you said that last meeting, and I know for a fact that you have because I saw them.
I have not received any public comments.
And how do you usually receive them?
Do you have a question for the warden or deputy?
This question is for you.
I didn't receive any public comments. I've answered your question.
Do you receive them directly from the portal when people fill them out?
No, I do not.
Is someone supposed to send them to you from the portal after people fill them out?
Access to the portal, we check, and we haven't received it.
In months?
You have a question?
Is there a reason you don't want to answer that question?
I already answered your question.
You're alleging that no online public comments were submitted for the past few months.
That answers your question. You have a question for?
Okay, I know that that is a lie.
Okay.
So the next thing is, we talk a lot about the NCCHC suicide review. They also, remember, did a mortality review. And so, there was some really scary findings that they had after going into the Allegheny County Jail. Specifically, a couple things I wanted to point out and ask about to see if any of these things have been remedied. So again, from the NCCHC mortality review. It's a concern about the procedure in the event of an inmate death. And as was mentioned earlier, James Washington recently died in the jail, which, again, hours into the meeting, and Jens haven't referenced it. It says the Allegheny County Jail does not do mortality reviews, and psychological autopsies are minimal if done at all, not providing the information intended by the standard. Although this standard is not labeled essential, it is extremely important, especially considering the environment in Allegheny County. The same review is required for any deaths that occur off-site when the facility is responsible for the incarcerated individual. So was this mortality review done in James Washington's death?
So first of all, I want to correct you about an individual dying in our jail, because the individual did not die in our jail, first of all. Secondly, I want to say we report out exactly what we're doing to implement some of the recommendations from the NCCHC. And the first recommendation that I reported to the board was the creation of our critical care unit. The second recommendation that I presented to the board was the discontinuation of our sales side interviews. So we're reporting out every month what we're doing. Now, the mortality review, of course, that's something we're going to try to do. That's something we're going to do, because that's a recommendation. So the answer to your question is yes, we're going to look into that.
I think you might have misheard my question, because what I asked is, was a mortality review done for James Washington's death?
And what I just stated is we're going to look at doing that.
So no, there was not a mortality review done for James Washington's death. Is that what you're saying?
At this time, no, ma'am.
Okay. And you do understand that the same review is required for deaths that occur off-site under your responsibility, correct?
I'm going to actually make sure that that's the case, but I will look into that.
It's under JA09, procedure in the event of an inmate death. Important, it actually says in bold next to it, so I hope you read this part.
Again, I'm going to look into that, and that's what it says. That's what we'll do, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I just haven't seen any before. I have never seen a mortality review come out of any of the deaths, especially in the past 3 years that we've talked so much about. So I'm just confused as to why that hasn't happened yet, but it seems that other entities are concerned as well. The next question I have specifically about James Washington is because his medical emergency that led to his death did happen in intake. This is another thing from the NCCHC mortality review. Under receiving screening, again, this one says essential, so I hope you read that as well. It says that the amount of time an individual is kept in intake exceeds most jail practices and places inmates at risk for not being treated or identified as requiring additional care. This practice falls short of the NCCHC's standard, and yet another man has died in intake. And so I'm wondering if you can speak to what you changed since the NCCHC review that said that your practices in intake fell short till now.
I think I just reported the things that we just changed, Ms. Allen.
In intake, you did not report those things.
I'm going to say this again, Ms. Allen. We've created a critical care unit. We've discontinued the cell side interviews. I stated that if we're required to do a mortality review, we will do it. And we're trying everything in our power to expedite individuals in our intake department, and we are still committed of expediting individuals in our intake department and making sure that they go through the 4 medical processes in our intake department, to include the medical clearance, the receiving screening, the mental health evaluation, and our physical assessment.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you pointed that out because that was actually the issue that the NCCHC mortality review had, was the bifurcation of this intake process and that it results in serious negative outcomes. So yes, I very much understand it is a multi-tiered process, but that is the problem that they identified. You did not resolve it, and now someone is dead. And I'm asking you to specifically talk about what you have done differently in regards to intake processing, not cell-side visits, not whatever the critical care unit is, but specifically intake processes, since that was outlined in the review.
Again, Ms. Hallam, we do everything in our power to expedite individuals going through our intake department. We make sure that they go through the 4 medical processes in our intake department, and that is what we're going to do. If there's any other recommendations that the NCCHC has recommended, we will look into implementing that. But I've answered the question.
I disagree that you've answered the question, but I will move on to another thing from the report.
Excuse me, Bethany, can I hop in real
Yeah,
quick?
please, Ryan.
The Controller's Office did actually ask for a written report based on these changes, and we haven't received that report. When can we expect that?
What type of report are you asking for?
We asked for a written response based on these recommendations.
So I've asked the Controller's Office to set up a meeting with the ACJ and the Sheriff's Department so that we can talk to the Controller about what our recommendations are. So as soon as the Controller's Office give us some dates and times, we would like to meet with the Sheriff's Department so we can discuss what our recommendations are.
Ryan, I wouldn't hold your breath for that meeting.
Oh, I'm absolutely not. Yeah. Back to you, Bethany.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next thing from the NCCHC mortality review. This one is titled Medically Supervised Withdrawal and Treatment. Again, this one is labeled as essential. It says the facility has a detox nurse working Monday through Friday, day shift only. So now, Warden Harper, I don't know if you remember, I think it was like a week or 2 ago now, I was out and I got a call from someone in the jail that someone died in the jail. Which is always so weird when I get those calls from not you, because you are obligated to report to the Jail Oversight Board when there is a death in custody. And so I got a call, I believe it was a Sunday, and I dropped what I was doing, went down the jail. And so I was held in the employee entrance for an hour. And you smile about it, but I know it was you taking your good old time to get down to the jail in direct violation of the statute, right? So I want to make sure, first of all, before we get into this, that you are aware that the statute says that my inspections are to be out of the presence of the warden and his agents. Have you ever read the statute that governs this board and our inspections?
I read the statute.
Okay, so you're aware that it says that our inspections are to be out of the presence of the warden and his agents?
And when you come or any board member come, we are out of the presence of any board member. We allow you to go answer any questions that you need to answer of the inmate population, and we're nowhere around you. Am I correct?
You are incorrect. So when I got to the employee entrance, I was not allowed to move until you got there. I think it was actually Deputy Smith who got there first. And then you showed up. So I had to wait an hour. I kept track till I was even allowed into the facility. I went through the metal detectors, did all my screenings, and I was still held there. And nobody could understand why. The young women who were working at the desk were being so helpful to me, calling everyone, asking them to come, and they were all told that you told them that I could not go anywhere until you guys got there.
One of the things that you have to remember, Ms. Hallam, is that we have a jail to run. And if I have limited captains and supervisory staff on shift, I'm not going to designate them to walk a jail board member around, taking them from their other important responsibilities. So I did make that determination to hold you until Deputy Smith got there or I did do that because my staff needed to take care of other pertinent issues so that we can have an efficient operation of the jail. So yes, I did make that decision.
But yet your inability to do your job and ensure the jail is fully staffed has no way to infringe on my statutory duties to inspect the jail. I mean, that's just not my problem to figure out. The statute is very clear, and you followed me around despite me telling you. When you got there, I have told you multiple times, I do not want you going on my inspections with me. I do not want to walk onto pods with you. I do not want you listening in on the conversations that I'm having with incarcerated individuals. I have the right to inspect the facility wherever I want without you there or any of your agents. The statute is very clear on that, and yet not once have I been afforded that right. So thank you for admitting that on the record. I will use that in my lawsuit against you in the future, but I just want to make sure that you know going forward you are not allowed to do that. And then coincidentally, as I'm waiting in that hour to be let into the jail, I find out after I leave that that's when the Jail Oversight Board got an email. Not confirming that anybody died, but just letting us know of a medical emergency that had happened. So I go through and I of course go to intake first because I knew that that's where Mr. Washington died. And when I walk in there are people who had first of all been there for days. And again, there was not, as the report said, a detox nurse. Yet that concerns me because we know that Mr. Washington died from an overdose. So the fact that there was nobody there, if he received Suboxone when he was in the jail, so we know he had an active prescription for Suboxone. So why was no one there to detox him, to make sure he could have been still alive today? So what are you doing to make sure that people who come in on the weekends, who don't come in Monday through Friday, day shift only, are getting proper detox meds, and meds especially for opioid use disorder?
I can't really talk about the specific treatments that he received, but what I can say is that there is a difference between somebody receiving medication-assisted treatment and us using detox protocols. So if somebody is receiving medication-assisted treatment and may not be demonstrating signs of withdrawal, we may not do both treatment protocols.
So you're using different medications for withdrawal detox than you are for MOUD? Like, are you giving people MOUD for detox?
No, what I'm saying is if somebody is coming in on medication-assisted treatment, we're going to utilize the medications they're being prescribed, that since they were being prescribed that on the street. If there were no other signs or symptoms that we were able to assess and observe that required additional detoxing, then we're not going to institute detoxing protocols based on that assessment.
But people are coming into the facility who are on medications for opioid use disorder on the streets and then are sitting detoxing in intake for 2-3 days. I've talked to multiple people just in this past visit that was happening to. So I'm wondering, how are you doing detox when the people who need it the most are not getting it?
I'm not sure I'm following your line of question.
I'm wondering if you're using Suboxone for detox.
That's not a part of our detox protocol.
Okay, so you were only using Suboxone for people who come in and have a prescription?
Yes.
And what are you doing for them while they are sitting in intake waiting for that prescription and going through detox symptoms?
When we learn that they are going through detox symptoms, we're able to do that assessment to get them initiated on the detox protocols.
But that takes days? They have to go through days of detox and withdrawal to get that?
Not necessarily, no.
But there's no detox nurse on the weekends, so how are you doing it? Over the weekends, that's 2-3 days.
Because in intake, we have nurses in intake. The detox nurses are intake protocols the way we have set up right now. It's the nursing staff that are in intake that are initiating the detox protocols, and our detox nurse is managing once they've moved on to the intake units. So once they're moved up to housing units.
But in this report, it says that you're supposed to have it all the time, 24/7. So able to help at intake, able to help when they're on the pods, able to help when they're on the intake pods. It's not saying that you're only supposed to have somebody to assist with detox in the intake pods.
I understand that, and that's a part of what we were saying is there's a lot that is in that report. I think we can agree on, right? There's a lot to work on.
Yeah.
So there's only so much that we can do at one time. So what we have started implementing we haven't accomplished the things that we want to accomplish in intake.
But it's one thing, you know, I get frustrated every month hearing him come and say that, right? Oh, we're working on it, we're working on it. I don't see any work getting done, but now somebody's dead as a result. And so that's why I'm trying to find out, when are you gonna do it? Because you keep saying month after month, oh, it's coming, it's coming. Now someone's dead.
Again, Ms. Hallam, we're going to implement the recommendations from the NCCHC as quickly as possible.
And can we have a timeline on that?
No, you cannot, ma'am. We cannot give you an accurate timeline as to when these will be implemented.
Gotcha. Okay. So also a number was given out earlier about the number of people helped by MOUD. I think it was 112 people were on Suboxone was the number I got. And I just want to clarify, none of that is detox. That's all maintenance?
Correct.
Okay. Gotcha. The next thing I want to ask about is specifically, if, Warden, are you aware that the Department of Justice requires you to report the deaths of incarcerated people who die after being transferred to the hospital, even if they're released from your custody?
We do report to the Department of Justice, yes.
Even people who die in a hospital after being released from the jail?
People that's in our custody, yes.
That is not what I asked. The law says that even if they were released from your custody, you still have to report it as a death in custody.
That's what the statute says, yes.
So, are you aware that that's what you're supposed to do? I feel like you're playing word games here, saying if they're in our custody.
I am aware.
You're aware that someone who dies in the hospital after being released from the jail, you have to report.
It depends on when the individual passed away. So if
It does
the
not
individual
depend.
Well, I disagree, but what is your question?
My question was if you're aware what the law is about reporting deaths in custody, and it seems like you are not.
And I said that I am aware.
You said that it depends on how long the time was.
If somebody passes away a year from now, no, I don't think I have to report that.
If they pass away a year from now because of an incident that happened to them in the jail and were sent to the hospital from the jail, absolutely you have to report
well,
it.
I will have to look into that, Ms. Howell.
Okay, I'm telling you that that's the case, but you can also look into
I
it.
will.
So who completes the Death in Custody Act reports?
Our staff do.
Is there a specific position or person or classification of staff that is responsible for that?
No, ma'am.
So anyone in the jail could do that?
It could be one of several people, but no, it's not a particular person.
Okay. Who completed it for James Washington?
Nobody right yet.
So you have not reported his death yet?
I have not.
Cool. And why is that?
I just haven't reported it yet.
When do you plan to report it?
Next week.
Next week it will be reported?
Hopefully, yes.
Okay. Are you conducting a mortality review? I know you said you'll think about it, but do you have any solid plans for a timeline on it?
I just think I reported to you, Ms. Howland, that if the statute says that I'm supposed to, I will do that.
Okay. The NCCHC reported that you don't do it, so that's why I'm wondering if you're doing one this time.
I just said if we're required to do it, we will do that, Ms. Howland.
Okay. What changes or prevention measures are Arians taken to prevent future overdose deaths in the jail as a result of Mr. Washington's death?
We were taking a look at identification processes in intake to see earlier identification was one of the areas we were looking at.
And when you say identification, what do you mean by that?
So identification of the potential of some type of substance overdose, if that's what's relevant, as well as other critical conditions. So that's a part of the critical care unit that the warden was talking about earlier, is that other medical critical conditions that we might be managing throughout the jail, we want to be able to identify them as early as possible, and that includes intake. So whether it's substance risks for safety or other medical risks for safety, working on how we can better identify them down in intake earlier.
Okay, and are you also tracking folks who are dying in the jail from detox or overdose?
Yes.
Okay, and how many people have died from detox or overdose in the past 3 years?
I don't have that in front of me.
But it is something that you track, and you could bring that number to the next meeting?
I'd have to look for it. I'd have to go back through, I'm not sure we went back 3 years, so I have to look.
Okay. Oh, it's something that's new, starting to report that?
What do you mean, starting to?
You said, I don't know if we went back 3 years, so I was wondering if it's
The
something you just...
information that I had readily available, I wasn't sure how far back it went, is what I'm referencing.
Okay.
Bethany, can I hop in again?
Yes, please, Ryan. Thank you.
Warden, I think you got confused. There's a meeting with the sheriff's office regarding notifications that's currently being scheduled with the three of us. However, you stated that the jail would draft a response when the NCCHC presentation first occurred, and we have not gotten anything from you.
Again, I've asked for a meeting with...
That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to the NCCHC report. That meeting that you're referring to is with the sheriff regarding notifications.
Okay. Oh, so you talk about your request for us to give you a draft response pertaining to... I will look into that.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you give me an estimate?
I cannot.
Okay. Didn't think so.
May I proceed?
Go ahead, Bethany.
Thank you so much, Ryan. The next question is about, at the last meeting, we had asked for information about hospital runs. Specifically, we were trying to get costs about transportation, how much we're spending on taking people to the hospital because we're not providing adequate medical care in the jail, and so they're having to go outside of it. So I was wondering why I hadn't received that report. I mean, you had almost 2 months to provide it to me at this point.
We will try to get that report to you next Jail Oversight Board meeting.
No, you were supposed to give it for this one.
We did not provide it for this one, so we'll try to provide it at the next meeting, ma'am.
Why did you not provide it for this one?
Because I forgot to do it, Ms. Howland.
You forget to do a lot of things, but this is just not excusable that every meeting, the things that we're asking you to bring, you say you're bringing to the next meeting and never do. So can you give me a timeline? I would like that by the end of the month, now that you've been reminded. So for every time, we got a report that shows that there have been 105 emergency room runs from January 16th to April 15th. So now every time there is an emergency room run, were the next of kin notified for each of those? Or are they only notified if someone appears to be dying?
The next of kin notification policy is when we are informed from the provider that they're in critical condition.
So somebody could be in the hospital for days and their family would not know?
According to our, yes.
Okay.
If you're in the hospital and not in critical condition, we're not notifying next of kin.
Okay, and why? Who created that policy? Is that the jail's administration created that policy? Can someone speak to why that is, that you're not informing family when their loved ones are going to the hospital?
Probably for the same reason that we...
Judge Halsey, I did not ask you. You told me not to ask you questions. I am directing that question to
So it's
the warden.
probably for the same reasons that we discussed the last 2 meetings, where it was indicated that because of a concern for safety and security, family members would not be notified when people are in the hospital unless they're in critical care. And because of the concern for safety and security, people's families will not be notified. I understand you don't agree. I understand you're opposed to it. I understand you don't like the answer. But the answer's not going to change because you're asking the question 3 more times, 3 meetings later.
Are you done?
That's the answer. It's the answer. And you just don't accept it, but it's the answer. I don't know what else you want to say.
I am a law-abiding citizen. I like to follow the laws of this great commonwealth, and yet I seem to be the only person on this board who does, which is, not going to lie, the biggest surprise of my lifetime. But here we are. So please stop interrupting when I am doing my law-abiding job, my statutorily obligated job. Just because you don't want to do yours, please do not interfere with mine. Please do not interfere with mine. I am speaking to the warden.
But you asked him a question. I'm giving you an answer.
Exactly. I asked him a question. I want an answer from the warden who was asked the question. You specifically
the meetings get dragged on needlessly with you asking the same question.
You are wasting a lot of time right now telling me what I can and cannot do. You are an equal member of this board as me.
The sheriff answered the question. I don't know what else you're asking. What do you want, a different answer? He's going to give you the same answer.
I want the warden to answer the question. I would like anyone on this board to back me up when he doesn't. That's a simple ask.
You got the answer. You just don't like it. He gave you the answer.
I did not get an answer. But again, I am talking to the warden.
Answer the question.
I am talking to the warden. So the next of kin is not notified when there are hospital runs. Is the Jail Oversight Board notified for these hospital runs?
The Jail Oversight Board and emergency contact is only notified when the provider from the hospital indicates for us to notify the emergency contact. That is the only time we notify the emergency contact and the JOB.
And the numbers from the emergency room runs that are in the warden report, where do those come from? Are they how are they tracked? How are those numbers kept?
We have health record management of who's going out to the hospital and trying to make sure that we stay up to date so that we can, when we receive them back, are able to continue their care.
Okay, so it's like scraping the information in everybody's health care record? I don't understand.
No, if somebody goes out to the hospital, we are tracking that they're off-site now, so that, we can stay up to date on what their care is with the hospital.
Okay, and then you pull the numbers from that?
Right.
Okay, cool. And then my next questions are about the use of force chart, which I will say I do appreciate getting the breakdown of, like, I think you're the one doing that, the breakdown of the different pods and where things are happening. So I do very much appreciate that additional layer of information. Who tracks these? Are these uses of force pulled from that big book that sits on like the guard's desk in the pod, where they track everything that like comes on and off the pod, or how are these tracked?
Each use of force incident results in an incident packet being generated. Okay, that initiates our review process from the shift commander through the administration. Once the packet is reviewed, it's then indexed and then uploaded to our document retention system.
Thank you very much. And then I know you do a lot of work with this. Have you been noticing if uses of force are increasing, decreasing, staying the same? Do you track that over time?
I generate these reports every month, so they're staying about the same.
Pretty the same, okay. And how do our use of force numbers compare with other Pennsylvania jails of similar population size?
I don't have a comparator in front of me. I don't know.
So how would you know if, the number of uses of force that we have is too many and you need to address the issue?
I guess how would you define too many?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking you. How would you define too many if you're not comparing to other jails?
A lot of these use of forces are reactionary incidents, okay? I mean, there's nothing we can do to control that.
To control when you use force, there's nothing you can do to control that?
What I'm saying, the majority of these incidents that we report on are use of force incidents where we have an altercation on a housing unit. We have to respond, and they don't listen to orders. We have to separate them physically, so we generate the use of force packet. So.
Okay, and how many total officers have been disciplined for use of force over the past, say, 5 years?
I have no idea.
Who keeps track of that, if there's any disciplinary measures that result as a result of the uses of force?
I can't say that there's a chart that I could reference. I don't know.
Okay. Do officers ever get disciplined because they have excessive uses of force?
Through the review process, if we find incidents where it has to be, then we refer it to our disciplinary process, and through due process, then it has happened, yes.
Okay. I was just wondering if when you're tracking where they are, if that's ever raising any red flags about specific officers that may be involved in use of force more than others.
No.
Okay. Next thing is, so when I was there for my inspection, I think that was last Sunday, I noticed, and it was like a recurring thing that happens every time I go, I feel like the jail is on lockdown every single weekend. And it's not just that I feel like it, it's what the people who are there tell me, that every weekend, I think even staff members were telling me that the jail is locked down. And yet when I look at the report of the solitary confinement report, I don't see any indication of that. Can somebody speak to using lockdowns on the weekends and why that's happening every weekend?
Ms. Hallam, there's no way that we can actually operate the jail if we don't have enough staff to operate the jail. Now, the statute states that as long as we have to provide them 4 hours out of cell time. So any time that we don't provide individuals the 4 hours out of cell time, it is indicated on the report.
I have the report here in front of me I can pull up. It's not, but I do have the report here. It actually says no one was segregated in intake. It says that there were safety and security is listed as the reasoning. I don't know if you're aware that staffing isn't one of the exceptions to the solitary confinement ban, and safety and security is also not one of the reasons. So this report that you put on the website doesn't actually comply with the law, and I'm wondering if you got legal advice that told you that this was okay?
Did you look at the pod lockdown portion of that report?
That's what I have on my phone right now.
And how many pods do you see on that pod lockdown report, Ms. Howell?
You mean how many different pods or how many instances of there
How many
being
different pods do you see on that report, Ms. Howell?
A lot, almost,
Okay.
yes.
So therefore, we do comply with the referendum and reporting when pods are on lockdown.
You cannot do a pod-wide lockdown. We've talked about this before, and as I was so graciously reminded by Judge Housey, I shouldn't have to repeat myself every meeting in reminding you that. It's the whole facility or it's individuals for very specific reasons. You cannot just lock down pods and say safety and security.
Ms. Hallam, we are not going to operate that jail if I don't have enough staff to operate that jail. If I don't have enough staff to open up those pods, I'm not going to open up the pods. I'm not going to do it.
But you understand that you're breaking the law and doing that?
I'm not breaking the law as long as I report it and give the reasons why, as we did on the report. You just said it. I'm not violating the law.
You told me the reason was staff shortages.
Safety and security. So staff shortages and everything is still safety and security.
For a facility-wide lockdown.
Well, I'm not going to open up the jail if I don't have enough staff to open up the jail.
But you understand that that's not what the law says you can do.
Okay. I'm complying with the law. I've reported it.
And can you show me where in the law it says pod-wide lockdowns are allowed for safety and security?
I have nothing else to say about that, ma'am. We're complying
I don't
with the
know if you
law.
heard that I just asked you a question. Can you show me where in the solitary confinement law?
I'm not going to answer any more pertaining to that. We're compliant to that, and I'm not going to open up the jail if we don't have the staff to open up the jail.
All right, you just, one of those say the quiet part out loud things, I guess. But also, I just want to, quote one specific part before we move on. The facility warden shall document specific reasons why any lockdown is necessary and why less restrictive interventions are insufficient to accomplish the facility's safety goals. Now, again, this is for the facility-wide lockdowns, but can you show me where on this report are the specific reasons why the lockdowns were necessary and where you explain why less restrictive interventions were sufficient to reach your safety and security goal?
When I get a copy of the report, I'll be able to give you more detailed information as to
It's
how
online.
we're complying. Okay, so I don't have that right now available to me, so we can talk about it a little at the next meeting.
Are you going to actually be prepared at the next meeting to discuss things? It just seems that you come very unprepared and do not take this board or your job very seriously. Cool. All right. Next. So again, on this list, there's also a bunch of individuals listed. It looks like there's about 100 individuals listed. And I'm just wondering maybe if those individual specific findings are listed somewhere. Is the report that's posted online incomplete, or is this the whole report that you did?
If it's online, it's the whole report.
Okay, yeah, so all the individuals that are listed as having been held in solitary confinement, there are nearly 100 of them. Where are the individualized determinations for why they're being held in solitary confinement?
I think it's right on the report, Ms. Howell. I
No,
think
it's
if you go
not.
by the name, I think it's right on the report, or it's in the paragraph as to why they're.
No, it's not. It just says medical, 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 medical,
Okay,
medical,
that's
medical,
the
medical,
response.
medical, medical, medical.
Okay, that's the response, Ms. Howell.
No, that's not what it says. That's not what the law says that you can do. You have to give individualized reasons for why, because you cannot hold people just for mental health diagnoses.
Individuals are on a pod that are tier 4 and 5, and the doctors do not think that they're eligible to be out of cell, they're on the report. A doctor says that they cannot come out. That's why we're saying medical, medical, medical. So this is a doctor, an MD, that says that they're not stable enough to come out.
Because they're on tier 4 or 5?
Or they were offered the out-of-cell time and did not take their out-of-cell time.
But you don't have that listed on here at all, that that's what happened. Your report just contradicts what you're saying. Okay. At the next meeting, please bring the documentation that you use to justify the solitary confinement. Can you also maybe point out, for the next meeting, of course, where in the referendum it says that you can place somebody in solitary for behavioral reasons? Can you bring that?
I'll have that at the next meeting.
Cool, thank you very
As a matter of fact, Ms. Hallam, everything that you would like for me to have at the next meeting, could you email that information to me so I can make sure that I have it?
Are you going to actually do it if I email it to you?
Could you email that information to me so I can make sure I have it, ma'am?
The list of all the things for you to bring to the next
quicker
meeting?
you do it, the better off I'll be in getting it done, so, okay?
All right, email Warden. Okay, I'm just not even gonna go there. All right, now specifically about tablets, because I know people had asked about that before, and at a previous meeting, I forget who it was, someone who was at a previous meeting said that you were gonna make sure that incarcerated individuals had a copy of the solitary confinement referendum on the tablets. Has that happened yet?
Of the referendum, we put the minutes on the tablets.
Did I say minutes?
So what did you say, Ms. Allen?
The referendum language banning solitary confinement at a previous meeting was supposed to be put on the tablets. As of my inspection a week and a half ago, it still was not, and I'm wondering why.
Okay, I will look into that. I don't recall you asking that.
Did you read the meeting minutes? Because it is in there.
I don't recall that. I will make sure that it's on there next time, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. The next thing is, and I have gotten reports of this, scattered reports over this for the past few months. I don't know who is best to speak about the visitation policies, but is it true that you can only be on one person's visiting list in the jail at a time?
That is the policy. If somebody on the outside has multiple family members in there, all they have to do is reach out. We can make notification to visits, and then we can open up the other individuals that are inside the facility so they can be on multiple lists. But as a default, it's one person on one list.
Why is that? I mean, I've seen multiple members of families in jail at the same time. Why is that the policy?
Just to have control of the list, so.
But would you have any less control if you allowed people to be on multiple lists?
That's always been the process.
Okay, and then you also can't put money onto commissary accounts. There's a big sign at the kiosk that says unless you're on their visiting list, correct?
Correct.
So you can't put money on more than one person's books if you cannot be on more than one person's visiting list.
Yes.
What is the rationale for that policy?
Same. It was just a control measure, so we know who's on what list.
But again, why would you not know just because they were on multiple lists?
It's always been the way it is, so.
So we should just keep on doing it.
I get very few requests to be on multiple lists, so.
That's because people see the sign and think they're not allowed. I mean, that's how I even found out about it. And so I checked for myself and saw the sign.
Okay.
So again, but you, just to be clear, I can say this to the families, you will waive that requirement if asked. Yes. Okay, and how do those folks reach out to get on a second visiting list?
They can call any one of the administrators.
Call, is that just like, is there a phone number for that?
For our individual numbers,
Well, you said just for any of the administrators, do they just call an individual?
they can call the 2000 line, and the operator can forward those calls to any of us.
And you should just say, can you send me to one of the administrators?
Just tell them what the issue is, and she'll be able to forward it to somebody.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Let me see what else I have here.
Sarah, you have Ms. Klein, you have
Oh, yeah, Ms. Klein, go ahead.
Perhaps to alleviate confusion, could you change the signage that they say, you know, if you want to make multiple visits, please call?
Yeah, we can look into changing the signage. We can look at updating the visiting tab on the website as well.
That sounds like a great idea.
Great idea, Terry. Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely suggest changing the policy, but it seems that we can get around it. Thank you, good point. Next thing is, I know another thing that I had requested is information about grievances, total number of grievances filed, how many of those grievances were found valid, how many were rejected or denied, how many appeals to grievances were filed, how many appeals affirming and denying the grievance, and the findings of each of those appeals. So I haven't received that. I don't know if you sent that.
So I looked into it in OMS, in our operating system, and all I can do is I can look up by individuals. I can see all the requests that they have filed and the responses to it, but as an overall encompassing, I can't pull that information.
Okay. So you have no way of finding out we approve or deny 90% of grievances filed, how many we resolve, no record keeping?
No.
Wow, okay. Another thing that I had requested, again, at a previous meeting, was for the dental practitioner to come to a meeting. What is the status of that?
I'll own that one. I completely forgot. I was focused on the other stuff. I'm sorry.
Well, luckily, we have a meeting in 2 weeks, so can you make sure they come to that? Thank you.
I appreciate the reminder.
Thank you very much. Okay, so a lot of when I go and talk to individuals in the jail, like I spent time in intake to find out about James Washington's death, and found out a lot of information, which I'll be putting in my official report for next meeting. But a lot of folks were talking specifically about the new commissary contractor, and so I'm wondering if anybody can give us an update on Oasis, like what you know about them, what you've noticed has changed since the last commissary provider.
I have not heard of any issues pertaining to commissary.
There's still no packages.
Oh, okay.
Are you referring to the families being able to purchase items? And we're working with them on that to come up with a menu. Due to restrictions, medical restrictions for the housing units, we're having difficulty how we can have that set up, but still abide by the medical restrictions that are put on for those that are having, based on the pod that they're on. So we are working with the vendor right now to address that issue and put that up on the website.
I'm confused. Before, when it was Keefe, they were just like general packages, like you could get a hygiene package, things like that, or you could get a snack package. There were general packages. Why is it dependent on what pod?
What would happen was if they were sent to a pod where that item was not permitted, it would be confiscated and put in a bin. So rather than put that burden on a family sending them something that they would not be able to have for time till they were put off of those restrictions, we're trying to come up with a way that at the time that the items are purchased, everything will make it to that individual. So we're trying to be more efficient as to what we are putting on the website and how we're designing that packaging program.
So are you saying that you're intending to design it so that no packages will have any items that are banned on any pods?
At least for the medical restrictions, we don't want that to have to be a burden because it has to be then removed when it is delivered, which decreases efficiency, which creates delays for when commissary is distributed. So we're being thoughtful and mindful when we are designing those packages that are going to be going up.
And how long have you been working on this?
We just engaged in conversations probably in the past 2 months of that program. We did have some other items that took priority for the commissary vendor that we addressed through the complaint system. Those have been resolved, so now we're refocusing back on this item.
Okay, thank you. And while you're up here, what's up with the food service contract? We still getting a new one?
The contract is under negotiation for this new food service vendor. The anticipated start date for them is June 28th. At this time, the contract has not been signed or finalized, so I can't speak any further on that except for the date of anticipated start.
Can you tell me that date again? June what?
June 28th.
June 28th is when it's going to start, but it hasn't been signed yet?
Correct.
And I'm pretty sure that was the status at the last meeting, too. Have you guys been in negotiations for a while?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a hang up? No. Okay, thanks.
Ms. Klein.
And maybe you can't answer this, but with the food service, food service contract, was there any talk about evening snack as part of the contract?
That was not part of the RFP or the contract.
What about who's the contract with?
It has not been signed at this time, so I'm not sure.
You're not allowed to say who it's with?
It's county policy that until the contract is completed, that we don't announce who it was awarded to.
We had also asked if we could get a template of book rejection letters. I think that's under your purview too. I still haven't gotten that. Ms. Toma? Yeah, I still haven't gotten the book rejection letters either that I've requested for months now. The list of books on the carts, identifying how the books are added or changed out, a library visit log. I haven't gotten anything about books except you saying we're getting a library, people are getting more books. So can you speak to that a little bit?
So as to the request as to a book rejection letter, we do send out facilities messages, which I'll be happy to pull what that looks like to the individuals when a book is returned for administrative reasons. We have had no books that have been rejected for any other reasons except for administrative ones. In regards to the library, we did finally get all of our shelving completed for that library. We actually were able to unbox a significant amount of books to add to our library. In regards to an inventory of the books, now that the library is completed and we were able to restock those shelves with the expanded shelving, we will be looking into the best way to catalog the books that are in the physical library. We do not have a plan at current of how we are going to address all the books that are within the facility on each pod, but that's why we have our book review committee, and those are something that we're going to discuss further on how we're going to be able to address that. What were the other items on your request?
The list of the books on the carts that are going around to the
Again,
pods.
once we are able to inventory the entire system, I don't know that we will ever be able to tell what books are on the carts because the books are transit in nature. If somebody takes it off, they move a pod, they don't return it to the book cart that was in there, so that's something that we are exploring. The initial ask of having the entire catalog that is there being inventory is our first priority, and then we will address those other ones as they proceed.
And I know recently the county just contracted with the Carnegie Library Pittsburgh to take over the law library, so maybe that would be a good opportunity. I mentioned it to the library director and the board for the jail to work together with
We had that
CLP.
discussion today about reaching out to them as well as reaching out to the Allegheny County Library Association to discuss the best practices of how we can curate and do other measures as well.
Cool, and I'm on the board, so I would be more than
awesome.
happy to help facilitate those
Great.
conversations. Let me know, okay? And
Do you
then
have anybody that you can give me contact to and forward that on? I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, I can definitely. I'll put that on my email list. Okay, and then I think this. My last questions are about tablets. Is that you, Deputy Warden Beeson? I think you've answered me about tablets before. So it seems that there's a really serious issue with people not having access to tablets on multiple days. I know I read the contract that the county is in with the tablet provider that says that they are in breach of contract if they are, one, not fixing tablets within a certain period of time, and two, if less than 50% of the total tablets are operational at any given time, the tablet provider is also in breach. And so I see so many people on so many different pods who don't have tablets because they're not working, they're broken. And so I'm just wondering if you have noticed that problem as well, and if anything has been done to remedy that?
So we always work with the vendor. If we have damaged tablets, they take those tablets, they take them off-site to refurbish them or get new tablets replenished, but we're at the mercy of the supply and demand for the devices themselves.
How long would you say it's taking for the tablets to get back when you send them away?
I couldn't say.
Because I'm pretty sure, and again, it's either 7 or 14 days. I just don't remember off the top of my head which one it is, but it's a short window that they have to get the tablets back to you and have them fixed. So that might be something that Yins want to start keeping track of, it sounds like they may be in breach. So I would be interested to see how long we're without how many tablets. And then when it comes to tablets, you don't have your own tablet, or do you? It's like...
Actually, right now, we're in the process of changing our current procedure. Right now, they're communal tablets. We actually did a full inventory of the facility and identified we had more tablets than we did have incarcerated individual. People were holding on to multiple tablets. So to address this matter, we're working with the vendor to do single assignment tablets so that only you would be the individual to be able to sign on to that tablet. So that is where we are going so that we can ensure that each person has their own designated tablet.
But if you have more tablets than you have incarcerated individuals, why are there so many incarcerated individuals without tablets?
Because people are, like I said, are holding more than one tablet. If you can sign on.
And there was no way of finding out that that was happening?
That's why we did a full inventory of the facility and identified it, and we're moving forward with the process improvement, of which one of those is to give individual sign-on so that issue won't occur in the future.
Okay, and then if someone's is broken, it will just...
Yep, like you mentioned, we have an inventory of excess tablets that would be swapped out, so that individual could have access to that. We're also working with the vendor to identify other sources so that they can continue to have access to things like the law library in the instance they wouldn't be able to have their assigned tablet to them.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
So, Ms. Hallam, could I have that email listing of everything that you want to include any other board member to me by close of business tomorrow, since the
No, sorry,
JOB
no.
meeting
I
is 2 weeks?
will not be getting that to you by end of business
So could you give me a
tomorrow.
timeline when I could get that?
Yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Ms. Klein?
I have a question. I'm not sure to whom this should be addressed, but one of the areas that the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund Committee is looking to do is to replace the mattresses in the jail, because we've had a lot of complaints about not sleeping, and we all know how important sleep is. So just understanding that the pillow needs to be included with the mattress, and I'm just wondering who would be the person who could provide us with what we would need to consider for it to meet the security needs.
We bid that out. The county bids that out, so we would have, the procedure would be to utilize the vendor that award the bid for that contract.
But we would be coming out of the funds of the Incarcerated Individual Welfare Fund, so I wouldn't think, I don't want to speak for the committee because we haven't decided this, but I think we would want to consider the specifics of the mattress, and then...
So there are security-grade mattresses. We could provide you with the responsive bidders who originally bidded on the original contract. We do have requirements with the pillow being inside of it, no scrim, cut-proof, things like that, that we can provide you the vendors. But we do have a vendor on contract who bid to purchase the beds for the facility, of which we have purchased enough mattresses within the past 18 months to 2 years to swap out every single mattress within the facilities, and it has a lifespan of about 18 months. So we're constantly purchasing those mattresses and swapping them out.
And I think, again, I don't want to speak for the committee, but I think we'd be looking to do an upgrade out of the Incarcerated Individuals Welfare Fund to improve the quality of sleep for people in the jail.
Then can I ask a question?
Sure.
What would be the sustainability plan for that purchase, considering the lifespan of the mattress?
Exactly. It would be, I can see it as an ongoing expense.
So it'd be a reoccurring expense that the welfare fund would be funding? Is that?
I could see that. I don't want to speak for or maybe we pay the difference over what the county would pay if we wanted to do an upgrade.
So you're also referring to purchasing a different mattress in its entirety?
That's what I think we are, yes.
My concern with the welfare fund is that because of the new commissary account contract, there are concerns about the profit margins and the amount of money that will be contributed to that welfare fund. So when you talk about the expenditures that occur on a monthly basis, and when that input, the receivables decrease, you may be in a position where we can afford to give people money for their tablets, and we can afford to pay for the liaison. So I just want to be mindful of our spending and the amount of money that's there, and also keeping in mind that amount of money is going to decrease.
I understand, but we've seen it stay around $2 million.
Sure, based on the prior contract, but the new contract, I don't know that that'll be the case going forward. It's just something to think about.
Yep, I agree. You can't spend what you don't have.
Right, and so the question becomes, you get mattresses, and then at what cost if there's not enough money to pay for other things? So I'm just putting that out there for you to consider, that's all.
So it would be helpful to get any specifics that would be security that you would need.
I can provide the bid that went out the last time, as well as, I can contact purchasing to get the bid and see if they have the responsive bidders from the original bid.
Anyone else, Mr. Urbanko?
Yeah, we requested that the addiction specialist be brought to one of the meetings. Can we arrange for he or she to be here at the next one or at the next available meeting?
I've responded that I shared that with AHN, and they've asked for any questions or concerns to be written in writing so that they can prepare.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Ms. Hallam, did you have something?
No, I was just scoffing at that response.
Anyone else have anything? I just want to point out that we as board members have a statutory obligation to document our visits to the jail. That's our obligation. It's supposed to be documented, posted on the website. To date, I believe, Ms. Hallam, this would be your 5th visit, and you've never placed any of your comments regarding those visits on the website. And I know how you're a stickler for the rules, but I think that members of the community need to, they have a right, they're entitled to see that visit and what you saw, and other members of the board do it when they visit. I want to encourage you to follow the rules and extend that same courtesy to the members of the community, which to date you have not done.
I will try.
Well, don't just try, it's a rule.
No, I'm going to try.
Don't just try, it's a rule, do it.
I'm going to try.
With that being said, Sheriff?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second.